Okay, so welcome everyone. You are here for the March 22nd, 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning Appeal Hearings. Before we get started, I'm going to take a moment. My name is Katie Byrne. I'm the Executive Director of the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals, so I'm kind of your moderator slash host for this. Going to help guide us through the people you see in front of you. You've got Mr. Bill Cunningham, who's a board member, Mr. Otis Freeman, who's a board member, Ms. Sabrina Turner, who is acting as our chair today. Our regular chair is not available, and Mr. Leland Shelton, who is also a board member. So these four people serve as your board today. You'll see Ms. Becky Witt, who is the attorney to the board. You will also see Madison Russell, who is an intern working with us this semester to try to help us as we navigate through to make this a smoother process, easier transition, and so she is here as well. You will also see Martin French pop in from time to time. He is planning's representative. So those are the faces that you will normally see. If you have signed on via the internet, you're considered an attendee. So as an attendee, you cannot unmute yourself, you can't turn your camera on, you can't do any of that. So what will happen is when your case is called, I will elevate you to a panelist, I will unmute you, and you will be able to turn your camera on if you have that function. If you are a call-in user and you wish to testify, what I will do is I will go through the call-in users and you will hear two beeps. And after you hear those two beeps, if I've unmuted you through those two beeps and it's your case, please be sure to speak up right away. If you do not speak up, I will remute that call-in user and move right to the next call-in user. If you're unable to connect to audio, please use the chat feature. If a speaker is inaudible, we'll try to have you either call back as a call-in user, try to log on again, or we'll try to translate your chats. We can put things in the chat and we can read those things directly to the board. Two ways to let us know if you'd like to testify, either in support or in opposition, would be to use the raise your hand function. So when the case is called, you want to raise your hand, or you can put in the chat that you wish to speak on a matter, whether you're in support or opposition. Please do not use the Q&A because I can't open the chat and the Q&A at the same time and monitor everything. So we're only using the chat. Testimony for each case will go as follows: applicant, support, opposition, and then the applicant gets to go again and has the last word and testimony closes. It's presumed that anybody testifying before this board is required to be testifying under oath and to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth. If you have any issues with WebEx, please call our office at 410-396-4301 and someone will be able to help you try to either log in or recall back. If you were having technical issues, you couldn't participate for any reason, please email us at bmza@baltimorecity.gov. So as I stated before, we have 4 board members for today's hearing. Cases will be called by the chair and we will proceed through the entire docket. Please note your case may not be called in the order it appears on the agenda, so please remain alert. We will call cases on the consent docket first. What the consent docket means is that we do not have any opposition for your application. If you're on the regular docket, it's either something the board has to deliberate about or you do have opposition going forward. At the conclusion of this hearing, the board will deliberate, testimony will close, and you won't be able to participate in the deliberations. If you want to sign off and you want to find out what happened with your case, you can call our office tomorrow and we can let you know what the decision was over the phone. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Sabrina Turner, who is our chair, and oh, wait, I don't want to turn it over to Sabrina yet. Sorry.
That's okay.
What I want to do right now, since I have kind of a captured audience, is to alert everyone to the fact that we will be in person on April 19th. So we will have one more virtual hearing on April 5th. We will have in-person hearings on April 19th. And I wanted to take this time to show everyone here changes that we've made to the website. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see this. Can everybody see the BMZA website on your screen?
I can.
Okay, so
Yes,
this
go ahead.
box is where I'm putting updates for in-person hearings. So right now on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, the BMZ will return to in-person hearings in City Hall. Dockets for March 22nd and April 5th will still be virtual. As more information becomes available, this box will be updated. So I don't know what the mask policy is yet. I don't know how many people are going to be allowed in the room. At this point, there's no hybrid option, but there may be by the time we get to the 19th. So please, if you have a matter on the 19th, or if you want to see how things are going, please continue to look at this box. I'm going to continue to update this. We've changed our layout. And so when you go here, you can see all these fun little icons. When you click on this box, it gives you the dockets. So you were to click on, just like it used to be over here, now it's a little box, or it's a little hammer for the dockets. And proposed dockets, we try to get them one to two hearings out. The little asterisk here tells you that it's a draft. So that means that this may change. We have just put all of the zoning decisions online. So as they are available, so if you were to click on zoning decision, so every hearing for 2022 is up here. You'll notice you have a, that we've heard so far, you'll see you have a live link here. So for this one, the hearing date was 2/8/2022. The resolution was 2/23/2022. If I were to click on it, it would take you right to the resolution. So resolutions will now be available clicking here on the board. So you'll notice we have the 3/8 docket here. As soon as those resolutions are ready, we'll go ahead and fill in the resolution date. These links will become live and you will be able to access all of the resolutions. We still have a couple we are issuing from the 2022 docket, but right now every resolution drafted and issued for 2022 is here, and we're going to be doing this going forward. So all the resolutions for 2022 will be here. Then they'll be condensed for historical records, and then you'll find 2023 as we move forward. Okay, I don't know why this is here. I need to fix that. I obviously did something wrong when I was uploading it and posting it. All right, note to self. So virtual hearing information is still here. It's just a nice little click and link. Alien Footweight, still building that. The application for zoning appeals. This is also important for everyone. So we've added tips for completing your BMZA application. This is the appeal application. We're going to be working on that. And your fees are here. One of the biggest holdups in people's applications is they don't include the cost. So your fees for your applications are here. Please, when you submit your application, please put that fee. All right, so enough time with the walking through the website. I'm gonna stop sharing and we're gonna jump right in. So I will turn it over to Ms. Turner. So for those of you who are on, who are frequent flyers, I'm gonna walk us through this website again at the next hearing as well.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I do not have a speech like James does, so we're just going to, I did this the last time too. I always forget what to say and I get unnecessarily nervous, but we're going to call the cases for which we believe we have enough information to make a decision, the consent docket first. And we ask that no matter where your case falls, the consent docket or the regular docket, that you don't do any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. You can stick around to the end of this meeting to hear how we vote on your contested matter. Or you can call the BMZA office tomorrow morning. And I do not have the phone number memorized. I know it's a 396 number, but what is it?
Yeah,
Katie?
it's 410-396-4301.
Yes. And wait till you get your resolution also before you do any work on your property. If I have any questions, I'm going to ask Katie and Becky, and you all can do the same thing too, Ms. Byrne and Ms. Witt. All right, let's start with, did I miss anything that anyone else remembers that I need to say?
No, I think you got it. Definitely that permit piece is crucial.
All right, let's start with the consent docket. So I'm going to call the case, and then if you are on the line for that case, Katie will pull you up, and if you're on the phone, we will locate you. The first case on the consent docket is 2021-356. The address is 3817 Hudson Street. and the appellant is TLC Real Estate Group.
Martin, anything from planning on this?
Oh yeah, I forgot that part. Anything from planning, yeah.
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has no comment on this application.
Okay, the issue before the board is we have a project to construct a 45-foot long privacy fence and garage door at first floor rear beneath the existing second level deck. What's required for this is a variance of 20 feet is required, 7.5 feet is proposed, 12.5 foot variance is requested. So essentially a 12.5 foot variance to the rear yard in order to install this privacy fence and garage door. If you were here for this matter, if you could please raise your hand or put in the chat that you are here on behalf of the applicant, TLC Real Estate Group. And if not, I will start going through the call-in users, to which we actually only have one. All right, so I'm going to go to the call-in user. And if you are here for 2021-356-3817 Hudson Street, please speak up. All right, nope. I'll give it another minute to see if someone puts in the chat that they are here for this. Oh, here we go. Got it. All right, John Lipareri, Mr. Lipareri, I am going to make you a panelist. All right, Mr. Liparani or Liparini?
Yes.
Sorry, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Mr. Liverini, tell us about your project. Is there anything you want to add? If so, you can tell us about your project.
As stated in the description, we want to add a garage enclosure underneath an existing deck. And it would be a garage door and a privacy fence surrounding the garage.
Okay. Well, this part I do have memorized. The board, having heard your appeal, believes we have enough information to grant your appeal. So thank you.
Welcome.
That's it.
All right, I'm going to change his role as an attendee and we can move on to the next one.
All right. Calling 2021-357, 605 to 607 Baker Street. The appellant is William Winkler. While we get Mr. Winkler or his representative, does planning have anything with this case?
Thank you. Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application. Notice that this application proposes a restaurant and a carryout and a catering service. Department notes that a carryout is not allowed as a neighborhood commercial establishment in the R6 zoning district where this property is located. And therefore, although the property can be approved for the restaurant and catering use, it cannot be approved for the carryout. The department recommends approval of the portion of the application relating to a restaurant with accessory catering. The department recommends disapproval of the portion of the application relating to a carryout food shop, because carryout food shops are not allowed as a type of neighborhood commercial establishment and are otherwise prohibited in the R6 zoning district where the property is located. Thank you.
Mr. Winkler, are you there?
Yeah. Yes.
And so you heard what Mr. French said about the carryout portion of your application, correct?
Right.
So are you still interested in going forward with your application with just the restaurant and catering portion?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you have anything else to add about your project to this?
No.
Okay. Katie, is there anything from? You're muted. Katie, you're muted.
Thank you. I will be doing that many more times before the end of the docket. So research, we have significant history of commercial use at this property, including automobile repair garage, ice cream store, beauty shop. Since catering is not a separate use under the zoning code, but can be done at the property, that's kind of rolled in with that restaurant use. So, and the exact same thing with what Mr. French said, that carry out, as long as there's no carry out, the uses that he is seeking can be approvable by this board. Mr. Winkler, it looks like we have someone here to testify in support. Cornell,
Yes. Well, no.
okay, but since you're on the consent docket, it's up to you if you want if you want to have additional people testify.
Oh, yes, you can.
Okay, so I'll unmute Mr. Cornell. Mr. Cornell?
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Sir, what do you want to tell us about the Baker Street project?
Oh, I'm just in full support of it. As you mentioned, it's been previously used fully commercial, even as an ice cream store, which I was actually a participant in. Very successful prior to the pandemic. So just wanted to voice my support of William Winkler's initiative.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Mr. Winkler, having heard your appeal, the board believes it has sufficient information to grant your appeal specifically for the restaurant and catering as an accessory use, but not for the carryout. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much and good luck.
All right, thank you.
All right. Have a great day. All right. Calling the case of 2021-359, 1728 Bird Street. The appellant is Jeffrey Vornador. And please, everyone, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, please correct me.
Martin, I don't think you have anything on this. Is that
Planning
yeah.
Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
okay? 2021-359, 1728 Bird Street. The project is to construct an addition at the second floor rear and a third floor addition. Only one variance requested, minimum rear yard setback. 20 feet is required, 8 feet, 8 inches proposed. So it's an 11-foot, 4-inch variance that's required. And Mr. Vadadora, I've made you a panelist and you are unmuted.
This is Caitlin, an agent for Jeffrey Vornador.
Okay.
Okay. Caitlin, is there anything that you want to add to the application or tell us about your project?
No, nothing at this time.
Okay. Thank you. The board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to grant it. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. The next one that I have on my list is going to be postponed for anyone who didn't hear it during the general meeting. It's case number 2021-360, 912 Light Street. If anyone was here for that, for Tony Destrump or Light Street Tattoo, that's going to be postponed to a different date. Okay, so we'll not be hearing any testimony for that one today. Up next then is 2022-100. It's 4415 Falls Road, and the appellant is John Dickey. Planning, is there anything from planning for this one?
Planning Department has reviewed this application. Noted that this is basically a continuation of the current use of the property and has no objection.
So the
Anything?
project is to use the first and second floors as offices, neighborhood commercial. So it's essentially neighborhood commercial conditional use, commercial office requested. So research of the land use history, the first floor was used as retail till 1976, then a cafe and office since then. The second floor has also been used as a single family dwelling. And Ms. Dickey, I've made you a panelist and you are unmuted.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Dickey. Is there anything that you would like to add to your application?
No.
Okay. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, believes we have sufficient information to grant your appeal. Thank you very much for coming and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have 2022-101, 534 East 22nd Street. The appellant is Mystic LLC. Is there anything from planning?
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, and at the time, the only information available to the department suggested this property was last used as a single-family dwelling, and therefore the department was going to recommend disapproval of this application. However, it's our understanding that additional information may have become available to BMZA staff, which you will hear shortly, which suggests that in fact this is a continuation of a previously approved use. So on that basis, I'll turn it over to Katie.
So again, the ask here is for 2 dwelling units for a multifamily. The variance is required in order for that use to continue in order for the use to be approvable would be a 2 parking space variant as well as a minimum lot area variant. So it's 1,500 square feet is required for a lot area. 1,350 is proposed, so it's 150 square foot lot area variance. The record history for this particular property is as 2 dwelling units. So we have a land use card from 1964 for 2 dwelling units. We had a land use card from 1966 for 1 dwelling unit. However, in 1983, there's a land use card where it was converted back to 2 dwelling units. So there is nothing, the last legal authorized use for this property was in 1983 as 2 dwelling units. So we do not believe, based on the history, that this is a conversion, that it was last used for 2 dwelling units. So the only issues before the board is to whether you will grant the 2 variances, 2 parking spaces requested and 150-foot variance to lot area. So if you are here for Mystic LLC, if you could either please raise your hand or put in the chat that you are here to testify. In the meantime, I will go to our call-in user. If you are here for, again, 534 East 22nd Street, please raise your hand or put in the chat. Okay, so it's not the call-in user. We'll wait a moment. Oh, it's let's see. Oh, yep, I see it's Nimrel. All right, I believe. All right, so I think Nimrel, you're here for I made you a panelist and I've unmuted you.
Yes, I just got it on mute. Yes.
Okay, all right. So this, I just want to make sure this is the right one, right? 534 East 22nd Street. Okay.
All right, Nimral, do you have anything to add to your application or any information to update us? Probably anything having to do with the 2 dwelling units, as you understand.
Yeah, I'm still confused, being that this is my first time ever dealing with zoning because I purchased as is presently. There's 2 kitchens, there's 3 electric meters, 2 gas meters. So it's present. Obviously, I'm going to do a lot of work in it. It needs basically a full rehab. Definitely permits will be pulled. So I wanted to keep it as is. Not too sure on where do I go from here.
I think that the board, having heard your appeal and the information behind it, believes we have sufficient information to grant your appeal for, or your variance for the 2 parking spots. Am I correct? That's what this is. This one is, yeah.
2 parking
so-
spots and 150 square feet.
Yeah. And I don't think that you have to add anything. You don't have to add anything. I just wanted to know if you had anything you wanted to add.
No, I'm just confused with the parking spot. What is that actually?
In order for you to have a certain number of dwelling units, you have to have a certain number of parking spots provided. But in lieu of doing that, you've come before us to ask if you can have your dwelling units without having to provide the requisite amount of parking spots. And basically what the board is saying is, yes, you can. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
clearly understood.
Okay. Okay. Well, good luck with your project. Don't do any work, like you said, till the permits are pulled. And thank you. And have a great
Definitely will.
afternoon.
Thank you.
No problem.
That was a good explanation, Sabrina.
Thank you. We are looking for then 2022-103. The address is 1803 Eastern Avenue. And the appellant is Derek Falcone, or Cloudy Donut Corporation or Company, Cloudy Donut Co. Is there anything from planning for this one?
Yes, thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application and notes that this property is located in the Fells Point Historic District. In that historic district, any exterior changes to the property, including additions, demolitions, and alterations, and signage, require approval by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. The department recommends that the approval of this application be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage, completed or installed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. And separately, that the carryout food shop comply with requirements of the Baltimore City Sanitation Code.
All right.
Yep, just piggybacking on what Mr. French said, what's before the board is two issues. One, conditional use for carryout food shop in a C1 zoning district. And two, a rear yard setback variance. So 20 feet is required, 20 feet is proposed. The existing building is only 15 feet deep and it goes to the rear lot line. So the variance would essentially reflect the as-built condition of the building and the shape of the lot.
Okay.
So let me find Derek. All right, let me see. I don't see Derek Falcone on here. If you are here for 1803 Eastern Avenue, 2022-103, please raise your hand. Or put in the chat that you were here for this matter. Let me see, let me look at this one really quickly. It's 2022-108, nope. All right, I'm gonna go to the call-in user until someone either raises their hand or puts in the chat that they're here for this. All right, not our one caller.
We
Let me see,
should just have our one caller tell us who they are, and then
unless
we
they
don't have to
want-
keep
right,
we don't have to keep
anonymous.
checking it.
I think it's Al Berry, actually.
Is it
emailed
Al?
us. Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry, Al. Okay, Al, I've just made you a panelist, and you might have told me that. I apologize, and you're unmuted.
You're on the Poplar Hill?
No, we're still on Eastern Avenue, 1803 Eastern Avenue. I have you
I'm
down
not-
for Poplar Hill.
I'm not involved in that. I'm not involved in that.
All right, well
No.
then,
I'm sorry. I was saying that the call-in user was Al, that he emailed us to let us know that he was calling in. Sorry about that.
right, that's okay.
No
Al,
problem.
I'm just gonna let you hang around because that's the next one, so I'm just gonna mute you.
Okay.
All right, maybe we'll come back to this.
That's
I
fine.
don't-
We can put a pin in this one.
Okay.
All right, so then let's call
Right, and then-
2022.
Okay, so while I know Roxana's listening, Roxana, if you wouldn't mind, see if you can reach out to the applicant for 1803 Eastern Avenue, see if they can get online. Okay,
Right, so in the meantime, we'll call 2022-106. The address is 912 Poplar Hill Road. And we already have Al Berry here, but Martin, is there anything from planning?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you very much.
great.
All
So
right,
the
the appellants
project,
are Edward and Julia Smith. I realized I didn't put that on the record. The actual appellants are Edward and Julia Smith.
all right, so the project is to construct a one-story side and rear addition to an existing single-family dwelling for an indoor pool. Variance is requested, interior side yard setback, 20 feet is required, 8 feet 2 inches is proposed, so it's an 11-foot 10-inch lot line. This is the lot line of the property is irregular and slightly off, so Al can explain that if need be.
Thank you, members of the board. Nothing further to add. The property is irregularly shaped in terms of the relationship of the property line to the building, the main building itself, and that's the back portion of the new addition required that variance. We have letters of support, I think, in the file from the two adjoining neighbors, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well, the board, having heard your appeal, believes we have sufficient information to grant your appeal. So good luck and good luck to you and your clients, and thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, we have one more on the consent docket and then we'll go back to the one that we were just on. So I'm gonna call 2022-108. The address is 2500 to 2502 Fate Avenue. And the appellants are Jean Marie and Elizabeth Sumo. Is there anything from planning?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application and recommends approval of it.
Great.
So the project is for a ground floor use office neighborhood commercial in an R8 zoning district. It's a conditional use request before this board for neighborhood commercial office. According to the land use cards, the property's been used for many commercial uses over the years dating back to 1959, including grocery store, bakery, beauty shop, offices, and carry out. So I have both Elizabeth Sumo and Jean Marie Sumo are made panelists and both are unmuted.
Yes, we are here and we would like to
All right.
continue to use to utilize the office. You might have seen the sign on both sides of the wall. So we just wait for your decision.
Okay, well, I am happy to let you know that the board, having heard your appeal, believes we have sufficient information to grant your appeal. So good luck.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a great afternoon, you all.
Mm.
All right. What about 103? Are we gonna go back to that one now? It was Roxana, were you successful at all?
I don't see anything from her yet, so maybe we could go back. Before
We'll
the
do
end of
maybe
that.
do a couple contested and then.
Yeah, and then try again.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the regular docket. The first one we're gonna call is going to be, I have like 3 pieces of paper I have to reference to get the right, oh, 2021-257. The address is 134 South Patterson Park Avenue. The appellant is James Heiss. I'm sure, I hope you'll correct me because I know I butchered it. Is there anything from planning for this one?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right.
So this project is to use a multifamily dwelling consisting of 4 dwelling units, 3 dwelling units in the primary structure, 1 dwelling unit in the rear structure. Currently, the building is used as a 2-unit multifamily dwelling. The only issue before this board is off-street parking. With the addition of 2 new units, 2 spaces are required for off-street parking. So they are seeking a 2-space variance. We have letters of opposition and letters in support. We have 3 letters of support in the file from neighbors that parking may be inconvenient at times, but many neighbors share cars or live without cars. We have opposition in the file, 1 from Butchers Hill Neighborhood Association, 2 from specific neighbors. The reasons for those opposition was it's too difficult for people to park in the neighborhood. And we have a letter from Councilman Cohen's office also in opposition. The land use research history for this particular property shows a multifamily use with various numbers of dwelling units over the years. 1944, 8 dwelling units. 1968, 7 dwelling units. In 2004, it was reduced from 6 dwelling units to 3 dwelling units. And in 2009, it was reduced from 3 dwelling units to 2 dwelling units. So again, the only issue before the board is the 2 parking spaces that are needed for the additional 2 units. So I've got Mr. Heiss has been made a panelist and he's unmuted. And then, sir, if you have, before I forget, if you have anybody here in support that you wish to also testify, please let me know and I'll pull them up first.
Good afternoon.
Will you pronounce your last name for me so I do it correctly?
It's Heiss.
Great. Mr. Heiss, tell us about your project. Thank you.
So the only thing that is not noted is that well, there's a primary building and a secondary building. The secondary building is fronting on Madeira Street, primary fronting on Patterson Park. So it's there's no access or area available for parking on the lot itself. And I've also applied, the neighborhood association asked if I'd be willing to modify the rear structure. I have a preliminary CHAP approval for the rehabilitation. And I checked with Stacy Montgomery over at CHAP, and she said that if I were to modify that rear structure, it would invalidate the preliminary approval. So
Did you say the neighborhood association asked you to modify the rear building?
Correct. I met with them virtually on a Zoom call.
So they're in favor of it if you did make that modification?
I do not believe so, but there may be a representative from the association on the call or available here today.
Are you going to make that modification and what was it?
Well, they were looking for me to create openings. The rear structure, the secondary structure is it's not a carriage house. It's like a caretaker's house. So there's no door for autos or, old horse and wagons. But if I were to modify that structure, I lose the benefit of the historic tax credit that I've applied for. And also, of greater concern to me is then I'm also messing up the historic fabric of that structure, which lends itself to the historic fabric of that community.
Do you know of anyone here that, I'm sorry, that's all that you wanted to add, am I correct?
Yes, thank you.
Do you know of anyone here that you, that's here on this Zoom call that you want to be able to testify?
No, I know there should be 4 emails that were sent in support.
Okay.
So I do not believe there's anybody that's called in to testify today, but they have submitted emails of support.
Okay. Well, if that's all from you, then we'll hear from the opposition now. If anyone is here to testify in opposition.
Actually, one question, Sabrina, if that's okay.
Sorry.
When you said that they offered a compromise to do some work to the rear, is that what are you referring to when they asked you to demolish the back structure and include 2 parking spaces? Is that what they asked you to do?
My recollection is they didn't ask me to demolish it, but they asked me to modify it to create parking spaces. So I guess we didn't flesh it out too much because I told them I was concerned about losing the tax credit, which I confirmed I would lose. So it was more discussion about modifying the structure, not demolishing it.
Okay, and you're saying that if you modify that, then Chaps stated that you will lose your tax credit.
Correct.
Okay, understood.
And it's a pretty valuable credit. I mean, the property taxes after rehabilitation will be pretty high.
Understood. So we can move on to opposition then.
Okay. All right. We have 4 people so far.
Ask a question. As far as opposition, is the councilman on the line or do we just have a letter?
No, we just have a letter from him.
Well, what was his opposition?
So let me pull that up for you. Hold on one second and I'll just read it quickly.
And before she reads this, I just want to remind everyone who's going to testify in general, but specifically in opposition right now, make sure that your testimony is different than the person who went before you. No need to duplicate it. We hear you every time when you say it. So that's it.
All right, so Councilman Cohen's letter said he wanted to express opposition. It's his understanding that Butchers Hill Association and over 60 neighboring community members oppose the 134 South Patterson Parks 4-unit multifamily dwelling variance request. Additionally, BHA has informed me that the association attempted to engage in good faith effort to reach a compromise with the appellant, but were rejected. Given the overwhelming opposition of the surrounding community, as well as the inability to reach a compromise, I support Butchers Hill community in opposing the applicant's application as it currently stands. So that was the letter from Councilman Cohen.
Do we have a representative of the community association who's going to testify?
We do. We have Beth Braun. We have Trent Waite. Beth Braun, I believe, for the community association. So I'll call Beth first, and then we have several others that wish to testify. So I'll start with Ms. Braun.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead, Ms.
Good
Brown.
afternoon.
You're unmuted. Yep.
You got it? Okay. So I just want to say I was going to ask to go after the others so that I didn't repeat what they were going to say.
Okay, I can put you at the end if you want to do that.
If that's okay, I would like to, yeah.
All right, no problem. I'll start with the first person that raised their hand was Virtual Bartram. So Virtual, I just muted you, Miss Braun. So Mr. Bartram, you're unmuted, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh,
Go ahead and state state the nature of your opposition.
I'm opposed to it. I'm a neighbor, and I'm also on the Butchers Hill Land Use Committee. I live on Pratt Street around the corner and down about 2 blocks from this property. And I can tell you that the parking problem is tremendous. I've lived in Butchers Hill for 40 years now. And it's only gotten worse. And recently I've had 2 neighbors who moved out of Butchers Hill, having lived there for decades. And they both decided that they just couldn't deal with the parking situation any longer. Yesterday I sent photographs of the parking on a Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. There's no parking in this block of 100 block of South Patterson Park Avenue. Even though the park is right across the street, there were no available parking spaces on that block. Around the corner at 2100 and 2200 blocks of Pratt Street, no parking available. On the 2200 block of Lombard Street, no parking available. On the 100 block of South Collington Avenue, no parking available. I have photographs of all of it. And so, you know, a lot of this is all about parking. I will mention, as Land Use Committee Chairman, I did offer the compromise if the owner would alter the back building and provide some parking, we would accept and back 3 units. I must say the building that's back there, I'm an architect as well, is currently supported off of the building, the alley house. Basically the house in the back is an alley house building. And there are braces, wooden braces, bracing it against the building next door. It is in such poor condition that they had to brace it on the outside. And the existing house is in horrible condition. I write tax credits all the time. I would be amazed if this gentleman could really afford the tax credits because of the additional costs it will be on his renovation. Not only putting in 3 new apartments or 4 new apartments, and also doing the tax credits. I didn't even think they were available for multifamily. Perhaps they are. I know there's some new funding from the state. So I think that's generally what I'd like to say. If you have any questions about our compromise, I'd be willing to answer that.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
I actually had a quick question. So about the compromise. Was your compromise to demolish the back building, or was it to modify?
We would be agreeable to either one. It's just that the existing building looks like it's in such poor condition, and whether it can be saved or not, and whether economically it could be saved, is highly questionable. This is not in our CHAP district. Butchers Hill does have CHAP blocks, but this property is not protected by CHAP.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, on to the next.
Okay, next one would be Arch McCone. Mr. McCown.
Yes, McCown.
McCown.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, board, for your services to the city. So my name is Arch McCown. I am actually still the safety chairperson of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, even though we live right on the border. The 2 neighborhood associations butt up against one another. And I am the vice president of the Southeast District Community Relations Council with the Baltimore Police Department. So as such, I help run neighborhood community safety walks. We just did one 2 weeks ago. We've had a number of carjackings in the neighborhood, unfortunately. And I should point out that we had a dozen people on our safety walk. The Major for Southeast, Major Smith and Captain Boyd were present. We had 12 people on the walk, and I should note that all 12 were homeowners, even though the walk was put out there on Facebook and various social media for everyone to attend. And so to that point, I think, so my wife, Dr. Sarah Merritt, who is at Johns Hopkins pain management doctor here, she and I, we've lived here for 15 years. We have 2 kids. We are both extremely active in the community. She works a drug treatment program as well for folks. So we've lived boarding apart here, and many of the owner occupants like us are so committed to an inclusive, diverse, equitable, sustainable neighborhood in the long term. But doing so requires a commitment, and most of the long-term, year in, year out work on that front is done by owner occupants. So I think that there's an abundance of multi-unit houses in this immediate vicinity, but conversely, our neighborhood has a severe shortage of single-family dwellings. So rezoning this house, it really only serves to exacerbate the existing issues of like the limited parking, but there's just such a low supply of single-family homes, and we have a lot of friends who say, "Man, we would stay in Baltimore, but we need a bigger house, and we want to live in Southeast Baltimore, but there's just no housing stock for that." So if we had we're up to us, we would like to see it stay as that 2-unit, the front and then the back. And I think that would work for our neighborhood, since we're long term. We plan to stay here, till we're till we're dead. So we're firmly committed. We love the city. We love Baltimore. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for him?
No.
Okay, next one, we have Jeffrey and Sharon Moore. So Mr. and Mrs. Moore, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jeffrey Moore. My wife and I live at 136 South Patterson Park, so we are next door neighbors. Our building butts up against 134. And I just wanted to add anecdotally about the parking issue that in the 6 years we've lived here, and we love this street, we love this neighborhood, because of the historic nature of the house and the block and the street, we've had to spend a lot of money on this house, and we're happy to do it because it's a wonderful neighborhood. But the 6 years we've lived here, it's been our Darlene lived next door, so it really was a single family home for those 6 years. And we can just say that whenever Darlene didn't have a car, and she wouldn't have had a place to park it if she had, but whenever her daughter came to visit her, we have a garage and a parking place in front of the garage. So whenever her daughter came to visit her, she would come and knock on our door and ask if she could park in our space in front of our garage. That's how limited the parking is in this area. And whenever we have visitors, children, grandchildren, whatever, that they often have to park in the space in front of our garage. So I just wanted to add that. And my wife wants to say something.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to, there is a small correction on that. Darlene only lived 3 years out of the 6, because then John Rogers, the owner, put the house up for sale. We became friends with John since the house is butting our house, and he, since we've known him, wanted to be sure that that was turned into a single family home. That was his wish.
And then he passed
Unfortunately, he passed away in October. And so I think he sold it, I think in August, and I think he realized that he was chronically ill, and unfortunately he did pass. But I just wanted to be sure that, I mean, that's maybe not relevant, but I just think it was his wish always. And we agree with this area being so crowded as it is, that we would love to have 1 unit in the front and 1 unit in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Moore.
I'm sorry, who is Darlene?
Oh, I'm sorry. Darlene was she was a tenant that lived there that John Rogers let her stay.
She lived in 134.
Right.
Okay, and there are 2 units in the house we're speaking of?
No, there was 1 unit in that house that's on Patterson Park, and then the other house behind it was considered a unit. Does that
So
make
it's a townhouse with sort of a carriage house behind it
So
and no
everyone,
parking.
and and as long as you all have lived there, it's been those 2 units, and this would be one in additional, right? Or 2 in additional.
No, he wants 2 in additional.
Okay.
Or 4 total. So
4
2
total,
dwelling
yeah.
units exist legally. He's asking for
Mhm.
2 additional, so 4 total.
Yeah,
Are the
as
are
long
the
as we,
two
as
are
long
the
as we
two
lived
unit-
here, there was one person living in the townhouse and nobody in the building behind it.
Yeah, because it's unstructurally sound, like Virgil said.
Sure.
So there's only one tenant on the premises now?
No, there's no one now. It was bought and it was gutted recently by
Okay, thank you.
by James Heiss.
All right. Does anybody else have any more questions for the Moores?
No.
All right. Is there anyone else,
We
Katie?
have one more, Trent Waite, and then Beth Braun. So
Oh, gotcha. We're circling back. Yep.
hold on. Mr. Waite, I'm trying to unmute you here. Just 1 second. Okay, Mr. Waite, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to give a quick background, I live at 120.
Mr. Waite, you are very, very, very quiet. If you could get closer to your microphone or figure something out, but your voice is very quiet.
Okay, is this better?
A little bit.
So I'm trying to get as close as possible here. So I live on the block. I live at 126 Patterson Park Avenue. I've been a resident here for over 10 years on this block, 23 in the neighborhood. I've been a realtor here for almost 20 years. And I don't want to, reiterate a lot of what is said so far, but there is a terrible shortage right now of single family homes. And actually, I was going to buy the house from Mr. Rogers. He approached me and some other neighbors, and I had a contract on it actually. And unfortunately, I sent it over to Mr. Heiss, and he actually took the house from me. And I was going to keep it a residence, single family residence. And that was his wish, John's wish. He actually came over to my house to check out my house to see what kind of work I do, because I've done about 12 of these houses in the neighborhood. And it would be a really shame for that to be converted back into 3 units in the front and 1 unit in the back. I was in the house with a contractor, and structurally the house is very unsafe. It needs a lot of work, and especially the rear addition. John admitted that he did put framing next onto the neighbor's house because he was afraid it was going to fall down. So saying that you're going to try to save that building is going to be very, very difficult for CHAP purposes. And like Virgil said, I don't think you can get a CHAP credit on that. But the other point is we already have lots of rentals on this block as far as multi-units. I think right now there's 23 units. And again, we're not against rentals, but I think 2 more is just going to add a huge problem with parking on this block that we don't need right now. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Mr. Waite. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
For him? Okay. Is there any?
Before we go back, excuse me, Madam Chair.
We have one more
Before we
person
go
though.
back,
No, Beth
Oh, I'm
Braun,
sorry.
that's right. That's okay.
Yeah, we have one more person.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Ms. Braun, you're unmuted.
Thank you very much. I just want to highlight a couple of, I'm going to bullet point it for you because I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said. People have talked about the parking crisis and the parking problem. It's not a matter of convenience, it's a matter of safety. People are getting mugged and carjacked on our street, and the further we have to walk from our houses to where we park, the more endangered we feel. I am the president of the Neighborhood Association, and I'm also a founder and chairperson of an organization for aging in place. And the number one thing that people say will drive them out of Southeast Baltimore is safety. It's not being able to park, and it's feeling unsafe when they walk to their house from their car. The other thing is, as a neighborhood, we have worked really hard for decades to remain our diversity, to keep our diversity, but also to increase the number of families in the neighborhood. And when the families don't feel safe, then they're going to leave. And this, just like the house on Fairmount that we did the reconsideration for before, in both cases, a developer came in wanting lots of apartments. We offered a compromise. As a neighborhood, we said, if you will do this and have fewer so that the parking is not as impacted as much, then we will support you. And both of them have turned us down and won't negotiate with us or won't compromise with us. So I am joining my neighbors and and Zeke in saying, please don't allow this variance. I mean, what's the point of having a rule that there has to be one parking space per unit if you're just going to negate it whenever somebody says, oh, I can't afford to put an apartment in there. I can't afford to make as much money if I have to also provide parking. Like, what's the point of having the code? And sorry, I feel really emotional about this. It's been a hard day. That's all I wanted to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the neighborhood compromise was to knock down the building in the back, and that would make how many parking spaces?
So it's my understanding, if I understand the nuance of it, it was not to knock it down. It was to, and we're not sure it can even be withstood, but you could have 2 parking places and then a structure over it. So 2 parking places there on the property with this building over it if it can withstand it. So to add 2 parking places.
And that would be how many parking spaces then?
That would be 2. There is no current parking there as it is.
So it would still be 4 units, but it would just be 2 parking spaces.
Right.
So oh, I guess what I'm trying to, and you answered it, the compromise is not on the number of units that they're building. It's not if he would shrink it for his plans from 4 units to 2 and then still not provide any parking. That's not the compromise. Compromise is build the building as you wish to, but provide 2 parking spots in the back for the 4 units that you want to build.
Yes, that is the compromise that was proposed.
Okay.
Which would still require a 2 parking space variance, correct or not?
No.
Yes, because you're still getting 2. Well, it's
So
interesting.
they'll be off-site, no?
That's interesting
Well,
because
that parking's on site.
yeah, the parking would be on site and the old units are grandfathered in and don't require parking. So if he tore it down and created 2 parking spaces on site for the 2 additional units, then no variance is required. Yeah, so that's right.
Thank you.
I had to say it out loud in order for my
Yeah.
brain to hear it.
And to be clear, he's going, the rear structure at this point, the compromise is to either demolish or modify it. But he is going to, and I guess we can ask him this, he is going to modify it to become a dwelling, that rear structure, correct?
That's correct, sir.
So it would be there'd be 3 units in the main building and then 1 in the back, correct?
Correct. It's roughly 3,800 square foot of building on the lot. 3,000 in the primary structure, and then 3,000 square feet in the primary structure and 800 square feet in the secondary structure.
And so I'm clear, are you saying that it will not be economically feasible for you to modify that structure, that rear structure, and also provide the parking?
2 problems there. One is, I think the building dates from 1900. So if I start modifying it, I'm going to, affect the historical fabric of that building. Secondarily, I'll lose that tax credit, which is good for, probably 150 to 200,000 over the life of the credit, which is 10 years.
What is the,
What's the tax?
what, have we moved
Go
on
Bill.
to testimony from Mr. Heiss, or where are we in the process?
I guess we should you're right, let's put a pin in this for just a second, because I think we might be able to go back to it. So is there anybody else that's here to testify for, against this appeal?
No, Ms. Braun was the last one to testify. She's still here. She's still unmuted. So if anybody has any more questions for Ms. Braun, then we can move on to Mr. Heiss.
Actually, I do actually want to keep her around anyway for our questions, just in case Mr. Heiss's answers necessitate someone from the neighborhood association answering. I do want to keep her around for just a minute, if you don't
Okay.
mind, Ms. Braun.
No, of
Before
course.
we
happy to
move on, excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes.
before we move on to Mr. Heiss, could I
Sure.
ask Mark French to summarize planning's statement on this?
You can. I don't know if he'll
Well-
answer you.
Right. And then
I don't know
Mr. French,
how he'll answer
Mr.
you.
French might be able to help us with understand the tax credit thing too.
Martin, are you there?
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah. Am I all here? Just kidding. The department did not take an official position on this one. Therefore, what I say is going to be unofficial. As noted by other people already, the property has 2 dwelling units on it now. One of them may be the primary building on the lot, and the other may be the secondary building in the rear. And if that's the case, basically the conversion here is of the larger building into 3 dwelling units from 1. The property being used for 2 dwelling units already does give a credit of 2 parking spaces towards the total of 4 that the applicant is asking for. Therefore, his obligation is to provide 2 parking spaces for the 2 additional units he's proposing. The question of whether he could do so using the back building on the property is something I think a structural engineer would need to answer first. And then secondarily, as he's indicated, if the property is subject to an historic property tax credit approval already, pre-certification, then yes, he would jeopardize his approval for that tax credit if he made any significant alterations to either the primary building or the secondary building, and particularly, what's being debated right now, which is essentially turning the rear building, the secondary building, into, call it a covered carport or a covered garage with a dwelling unit above it. Those are things I would not be able to answer. That's an historic review process also.
How would we know if he's been certified for a tax credit?
You'd have to ask him that, quite frankly.
I'm happy to submit the preliminary approval after the meeting.
What's the difference between a preliminary approval and a final approval?
The final
The
comes after he's completed.
Pre-certification is a determination by CHAP that the property qualifies for the historic property tax credit.
Mhm.
The certification follows the renovations, restoration, and so on. And
Makes
that is the document that actually authorizes the tax credit to start to flow to the benefit of the owner of the property. It's a complicated process, but the certification is done by CHAP, and then that information is forwarded to the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, which then does the calculation of the actual tax credit.
Sir, Mr.
Oh, wait, let's officially go back to the applicant getting the last word, right?
Right.
And then, so Leland, it's all you, go for it.
Oh, yeah, so this is to the applicant. Is there any way that you could propose modifying that structure and you could take that to chat and see if they can tell you if that would change whether or not you're eligible for that for the CHAP status?
I've already done that. When the community association made that suggestion, I reached out to Stacy Montgomery over at CHAP, and she said it would likely invalidate the pre-certification.
Well, what is the condition of that building as far as you're concerned?
It's in terrible shape, but I have met with a structural engineer, and he made recommendations to make the building, to restore the building, so it's in a safe condition. And I'm probably 75% of the way completed with that process. The front building and the rear building were in terrible condition. So the past couple of months have just been purely stabilization, following recommendations that were made by the structural engineer.
I'm trying to look at it on Google Maps just out of curiosity. It's not the corner building. How many is it down from the corner if I'm facing?
Second one in.
Gotcha. It's got double doors?
Double doors, correct.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, when I purchased it, there were 5 apartments set up in that main structure.
Oh, wow. So some point recently, and from what Katie said, that this was multifamily, even
So-
more than.
Yeah, and
It's a long
land
history,
use-
right?
yeah, the land use history for this one was goes way back, actually. For 1944, 8 dwelling units, 1968, 7 dwelling units. In 2004, it was reduced from 6 dwelling units to 3 dwelling units, and then in 2009 reduced from 3 dwelling units to 2 dwelling units. So we don't have like a record of where all the dwelling units are or were, but we know at one point it was used for up to 8 dwelling units. I can put on the do you want me to screen share for Codemap? Would that be helpful for everyone?
Mhm.
Okay. Where's the Codemap? Oh. Hold on 1 second.
While you're pulling that up, am I still unmuted?
You are still unmuted.
I just
but
wonder if, okay, sorry.
no. Go for it. This is a little bit relaxed, and if it's something that doesn't make sense, we just won't do it. But go ahead and let us know what you want to say.
If the back building disappears completely and 2 cars can park there, do the CHAP credits still apply? I don't know if anybody.
I think that if there's no building to preserve, the P in CHAP is preservation, right? If there's no building to preserve, I don't know how you preserve it. But I don't, and also this is something we can ask Mr. Heiss also, like I don't know if it's both buildings that he's gotten preliminary approval for, or just the back one. Mr. Heiss, well, do you know the answer to that?
I do. It was both buildings. They're in the same application.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is it from the front, this is the overview of the property itself. So I'll scroll back a little bit so you can see the rear building, you can see the main building, and there's the park. Let me see if I can get out of this view. Yeah, the lines are a little
May I
off,
ask a question?
but there it is. Go ahead, Bill.
May I ask you a question while we're doing this?
Sure.
Absolutely.
This would be to Mr. Heiss. Could you get pre-certified for the tax credit for just the front building, the house?
I don't
Could
know
you
how that would work.
Excuse me?
I don't know how that would work procedurally. Typically, what happens is before you do any work at the property, you have to get the pre-certification. So if I try to restart it, I've already gone in there and gutted the place because I had my certification, but I don't know how they would issue a new certification given that I've already done work on the property.
And to be clear, Mr. Heiss, the certification allows you to modify the back structure for the purposes of someone to live there, but just not what they're requesting is which would be a parking space, right?
Correct. I mean, if you look at it, and I have submitted pictures from the posting, it looks like a house. It's a small alley house.
So this is it right here, sir? Where I have my,
No.
got my cursor, or is it
Um,
this one?
Nope, I think you have it right there. Yeah, it's that
this
one.
this is the end, then this is your lot, right? So we go straight back. So this is,
That's it.
we're not
That's the
facing
one.
Madeira Street, it's this one,
Yep, but you cannot see that's the rear of the building. You
rear
can't
of
see
the building.
front facade.
I might be able to swing us around. I'm not the best internet driver.
You're doing a great job.
You're doing better than I would.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not, oh, fudge. Hold on.
Mr. Heiss, and this is probably something that maybe once we can see it better, it'll make more sense, but I was picturing a carriage house and you're saying it's more of a servant's house and less of a carriage house?
Yes, or caretaker's house, right.
I guess that's the right way to say it. Yeah.
That's what my
Okay.
kids tell me.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't seem that I can swing us around. So now I think I'm discombobulated. So I think this is still you, right? Is this, oh, heck, I don't even know. Hold on.
Girl,
I
that's
think
Pratt.
I'm off a block, right?
Yeah. I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it.
There we
Never
go.
mind. I know exactly.
Now.
I know where to go
All right.
to.
All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go back here and it'll take me right to back to the building I was at, and we'll be over top again. So yeah. Oh, all right. I've totally messed us up. Sorry.
Is it possible to pull up a picture from the secondary email I sent in with the certification of posting and those photos?
I think so.
I don't
Is that
have
too wonky?
any of that.
Let me just pull the file up really quickly.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne.
So you sent that to, let me see if I can find that. There we go. I think you may have sent that to to Roxana, correct?
Wherever I was required to send it.
Yeah,
with the
that's where you sent
instructions.
it. Yeah, I don't,
BMZ at baltimorecity.gov.
yeah, let me see if I can find where she saved it. This is the posting notice.
Let me see if I can find the date and when I sent it. It might help you.
In the meantime, does anybody else have any additional questions while I'm trying to find the picture?
I do have
Yeah,
one. Just a quick question on my end. Sorry. Is there a possibility to reduce maybe the amount of dwellings in the primary residence? Does it have to be 3 or could it be 2? And then also a residence in the back structure, Mr. Hayes?
The problem is there was so much deferred maintenance here. I mean, this thing was probably, Mr. Waite mentioned it, this thing was probably a short couple years away from just falling apart. So the budget to restore it is huge. And that's not your problem, right? That's my problem. But if we cut down what the net rents will be, it becomes a bigger problem for me.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. You were broken up. What was your last statement?
If we reduce the number of rentable units, it's going to present a financial hardship for me because of the amount of the work that has to go into the property. Almost nothing can be saved.
Let me go back to the last issue I raised. So the neighborhood would like to see 2 on-site parking spaces, correct?
Okay, yep.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I still don't understand why you couldn't go back and get pre-certified for the tax credit for the house only. particularly being it's the back building, you say it's in such terrible shape.
You can't restart that process.
And why
Once
is
you
that?
have, once you do any work in there, that's it.
Well,
So
what work have you done on the rear building?
It's been completely gutted. And I've already gone through and had the whole rear building ground out and repointed. I've had the wood windowsills ripped out and replaced with brick. Hey, there it is.
Yeah, this is the rear house
Correct.
and this is
Did
the
you have
front.
permits? Did you have permits for all that work?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay,
why
so-
would you
so-
start that before this hearing and before you knew that the zoning was approved? And why would you?
Miss.
Sorry, sorry.
So, no, I understand. You're unmuted because we need your input. And I understand that if we were in person, you two would have been able to have this conversation in the hallway. So there are parts of it that will allow, but not this part right now. But
I apologize.
no worries. Does anyone else on the
Yeah, I
board
had
have
a
any
question.
questions?
I had a question.
Go for it.
For the applicant. So the understanding is that enough work has commenced on the rear property that if you were to just stop today, try to come back with a proposal to now use this as a carport and a family dwelling on top of it, that you will no longer be eligible for a historic tax credit because you have eliminated the historicness of the building. Is that it? Is that the reason why?
It's because I'll be reapplying after work has commenced. And that's a big no-no with CHAP. Like you can't touch anything until you have that preliminary approval.
Martin, do you have a comment on whether or not that is typical of CHAP?
Did we lose Martin?
No, he'll come back. I have faith in him.
I know we are in, there he is.
Okay. Yeah, having just seen the picture of that, what I'm going to call the front facade of the back building, which faces onto the alley there. Even if this wasn't an issue about whether there should be additional units in the primary building on the property, CHAP does not favor the physical alteration of an historic building, such as an alley house, to put in garage doors. And this is an issue that comes up in a number of places in the city, not just here. So, yeah, the applicant would have had to have a very strong case why he absolutely had to have garage doors as an alteration of that building in order for this application to proceed. And in this situation, I would say, even if he made a case in that regard, or wanted to make a case in that regard, he might be disapproved by CHAP anyway. So I think it's just one of those things that has to be accepted. The property is what it is at the present time, and that's the historic condition of the property.
Yeah. Okay, and sir, so you're saying
Martin, let's back up a little bit. So he's done all of this work on the main house and the alley house. Let me ask Mr. Heiss, when did you know that the community wanted 2 parking spaces in some fashion back then?
Well, I don't recall the date, but it was a couple months. It was a couple months ago.
And you asked for your pre-certification before or after the communication with the neighborhood association?
I believe it was prior to.
do you happen to have the date in front of you?
I don't. I could submit that after the hearing when I applied for it. And the date that I think I have in my notes, the date I had a virtual meeting with the community association.
And when did work commence on the building?
Say maybe a couple months ago. I can pull up, let me see. I think I have the permits in the file. Bear with me, please. So the CHAP preliminary approval was issued December 16th, 2021. Let's see. The first permit was pulled December 30th, 2021. Be careful the timing on those. And then I'm going to see if I can pull up my notes, but maybe the community association has notes when we met. I think Virgil ran that meeting. But I'm going to search in my notes.
I will say, I'm sorry, I probably have a lot of those notes at home, but I'm at work, and so I don't have access to them.
I have a question that somebody can ask. What are the closest bus stops? Isn't there one on the, that should be one on the corner, right? The 65.
Yeah,
Right?
there's one right there at the corner of Pratt and Patterson Park.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Bus stops.
Oh.
So it's on the corner.
Yeah, it's very close.
But I can tell you that lots and lots of renters have cars.
The couple that spoke before, and this is something for anyone who remembers, who was literally any of you all, they said that, I think her name was Darlene that lived there. She did not have a car. That is something they said, right?
Right.
Does anyone else remember?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of tenants in there use the city bikes or the Lime scooters now. And a lot of the tenants, I have a property nearby. They like the area because they can walk. A lot of them work at Johns Hopkins and they can walk to work. So that's a big this neighborhood.
Well, how many properties do you have in the neighborhood?
How many do I have?
Yeah.
In Butcher's Hill?
Yeah, in the general community there.
In Butcher's Hill, I have one, and then in Canton and Highlandtown, Patterson Park, I maybe have another 10.
So you would say you're familiar with this neighborhood?
I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. My daughter, my other house is around the corner on Pratt Street, and my daughter lives there. So.
And are all of these are rental properties that you use? I mean, they're all.
One is my office.
Sure.
But the other are either residential or commercial rentals. Like I like to buy the buildings, and then like I have a number of commercial mixed use buildings that I've renovated to put businesses in. So brought 6 different businesses to the community. And I've had 5, I mentioned the Arch McCown pinned me down. We had a call when I was away last week. And I let him know that I've had 5 people that rented in the Pratt Street property I own come out of there and buy houses in the community, either in Patterson Park or Canton. And I explained like a good apartment is an ambassador for a neighborhood and for a city. So, yeah. But that did not seem to resonate with Mr. McCown.
Because he knows the crime that's there.
I can't do anything about the crime.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here.
Yeah. This is the part where normally you all would have this kind of conversation in the hall. We wouldn't be privy to it. So let's not put this part on the record. Let's
It's also important to note that there's been a major parking space realignment in a lot of the communities around here. So we've gone from parallel parking to angle-in parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has added hundreds of parking spaces in Butcher's Hill and in the surrounding community.
Let me begin to tie this up then. Are we waiting for somebody to show us something, or are we just still just vamping?
I threw out some dates. I can't find the date of my meeting with the community
Gotcha.
association.
Well, that's what I was waiting for.
Okay. Is there anyone, maybe is there anyone else who testified who would have been at that meeting who knows the date? Like they can look at the map, like their Google Maps function and like figure out like when they were in a certain place. That's how I figure out when something happened. I know I can go back and look at where I was.
So I guess, Ms. Braun, would you be the best person to answer when the community meeting was? Or, oh, Virgil is in the chat. He says he has it. So Ms. Braun, I'm going to mute you and unmute Mr. Bettram. All right, hold on, Mr.
Is my
Bertram.
chat just not updating, or because I can't see anything in the chat, or is he just chatting you?
It's just chatting to me. So Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Bertram, you're unmuted, sir.
Yes, we first met at our December 12th with Mr. Heiss. And
Okay.
then I see he got a permit for interior demolition on the 30th of December, about 2 weeks later. And then later got a permit for doing work, cleaning the paint off the front of the house and repointing it.
I'm sorry, what date was that, that the neighborhood met?
December 15th, 21.
Okay, and the pre-certification was 12/16, the next day? Or am I,
It was submitted, the application for the pre-certification was submitted on October 22nd, 2021. And I believe I said the certification was received on December 16th.
Does that answer everyone's questions?
I just want to ask, sorry, why didn't you meet with the neighborhood association?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
You cut off at the end. So
I'm sorry, you said that you submitted your documents for pre-certification in October.
Mhm.
Why didn't you meet with the neighborhood before that date?
Well, the pre-certification doesn't have too much to do with the renovation of the property. I mean, with the appeal here.
It doesn't?
And candidly, I wasn't aware that there was any.
I mean, the reason you're saying you can't provide 2 parking spaces, but because you've been pre-certified and it would cost you too much to not use that tax credit.
I mean, he was under no obligation to.
yeah, I
Excuse
think
me?
you're asking him to anticipate that they would have a problem with something. I think you're asking him to anticipate that this neighborhood association would have a problem with something and then prepare his application in such a way to anticipate literally any problem they could have had. I don't know how he could have done that.
Has the Butcher Hill Community Association told you had any problems with you in the past about parking issues, sir?
Prior to this project, no. And, I go over there a lot. I know that Mr. Bartram has submitted pictures from Sunday at 2 p.m. and that's game day, right? That's the busy time. But if you go over there, any day during the week, 12, 3, it's easy to park on Patterson Park Avenue. It's easy to park on Pratt Street. It does get a little tight from what I understand, rush hour and people coming home from work. It can be a bit of a scramble. You have to park a couple blocks away, but that's city living. In New York, there's not a parking space for every house or every apartment. It just comes with the territory.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions for Mr. Heiss or anything else that they want to say right now?
I'm done.
I have one more thing.
I was going to ask you to finish. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Heiss, and finish your last word.
Okay, in the neighborhood, in the interest of creating some neighborhood peace here, I've been involved with a couple zoning hearings where they will approve something with conditions. And I don't know if that's an option here. I'd be willing to make 2 of the units vehicle restricted until such time as I can secure on-site parking or off-site parking, or until such time as the zoning code changes and no parking is required.
So you're saying that in the lease for these 2 units would say you cannot have a vehicle?
That's correct.
I don't think that's a bad condition necessarily. And that's something that the board will note when we take up your matter on deliberation. I think that in light of that being new information that the neighborhood association is just hearing for the first time and didn't get a chance to consider, I don't want to bind anyone to this, but in the event that it's just something that they're like, no, that's not useful, then why even consider it? But I do want to call, is it Miss, what's her last name? I'm so sorry.
Braun?
Miss Braun, yeah.
Ms.
If
Braun,
I,
she's unmuted.
Miss Braun, is it 100% hell no, or is it that sounds like an okay kind of thing to consider?
It's certainly not a hell no. It is
Okay.
certainly something we would consider. But I would kind of like to confer with the neighbors that live there. I live in North Butchers Hill, quote unquote.
I understand.
So
So then I put this back to the board, and I know that people always, time is of the essence, including the time that we're here today. Is this something that should be postponed to you guys for until the next meeting, and it's something that we can take up? Because if it's something that you all can agree on, then I think that it's worth it to give you all a couple weeks or a month or so to poll the people most affected by it. What does the rest of the board think first?
I think that sounds like a good idea for them to try to come to some type of understanding. I think it's a great compromise. So I'm willing to agree to that.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
So Katie, can we
do
look
you
at?
want to, so what we can do, in light of Mr. Heiss's new offer, and that Ms. Braun's not necessarily comfortable, jumping onto this obviously by herself, because there are a number of people here, that we can put this off for 2 weeks. We can put this on the next docket, which is April 5th. Since that will be our last virtual docket anyway, and I know everything is, the signs all say virtual. If Mr. Heiss, if you can go back to the same community association, see if everybody can agree, and if everybody can agree to that condition, that you will have that stipulated in your lease, no cars for 2 units, then you could go potentially on the consent docket for April 5th.
Procedurally, how would you like to see that? Would you like to see an email from the community association saying that they've, based on that condition, they withdraw in their opposition?
Something, we would need something from the community association, whether it's a written MO, whether it's a written agreement between you and Butchers Hill, that they will withdraw their opposition if you have conditions in your leases for 2 of your units that they are non-car. Then we would need that before the hearing to put you on the consent docket.
I would also like something in that email specifically referencing the people today that came and voiced their opposition, who are the next door neighbors, because they may or may not be participatory in the community association as much as we want them to, but they definitely came here today to voice their concerns. So I think they're an important stakeholder.
Right, and that Mr. and Mrs. Moore next door. So
Yes.
with Ms. Braun, I'm gonna kind of lean on you a little bit to help loop them in.
happy to. Could I bring up one concern?
Absolutely.
So this is exactly what happened with the house on Fairmount. We had a hearing. We said, let's come to a compromise. They sent us new plans. We came back to the rehearing. And I'm sure that Mr. Heiss would never do this, but that owner on Fairmount said, I never agreed to that. I want my original request. So
we would need something back from you in writing that both parties would
all of you.
sign, from all
Yeah.
of you. So
But before
Butchers
we
Hill and Mr. Heiss.
we sent the drawings that they submitted to us for the one on Fairmount. We emailed that to the board before the second hearing before.
Right, but you had no agreement. There was nothing signed by either party that was the agreement. That was the representation that he made to you, that he then may, based on the information that we had, if he walked it back, that's that internal conversation. So it has to be signed by both parties. And that's how the MOUs work. So if we want to include them as part of the resolution, it's got to be signed by both parties.
Got it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I was totally blocked out of much of that conversation. So where do we stand right now?
Short story is we're postponing this so that Mr. Heiss
Okay.
can get together with the neighborhood association. Did you hear his proposal about making 2 of the units? In the lease, it would state no car allowed.
Okay, it's a good plan.
Yeah, that's his counteroffer, but in order for the neighborhood association to accept it, I keep forgetting your name and feel so bad.
Ms.
So,
Braun.
Just call me
Miss
Beth.
Braun.
Just call me Beth.
Said what?
It's easier.
Beth. So that Beth is going to go back and talk to her constituents, most notably the next door neighbors, but also people who are most affected by this, and make sure that that's okay with them. So,
Right.
Good
And,
compromise.
right. And if a
Yeah.
compromise can't be reached, Mr. Heister is back on the docket, April 5th. And,
and you all, the dissent are back on the docket too. It's the entire case is back on the docket
whole thing is
with the
back on
same
the docket.
issues as they've been presented today.
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
Okay. All right, so
Good.
postponed to April 5th, and I think everybody has everybody's contact info, so yeah, up to you guys to give us some kind of written document, preferably ahead of the hearing. If everybody has worked out, if this compromise is being proposed as something that everyone can agree to.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Ms. Braun, would I be contacting Virgil Bartram or you?
Why don't
Both.
you go ahead and, yeah, I was gonna
Both.
say, contact Virgil, copy me.
I do not have your email address, I don't believe.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Thank you all. That will conclude this case. For what it's worth, I've enjoyed being able to have hearings at home, but this is the kind of stuff that happens in the hallway outside of the hearings, and being back in person will, I think, make these a little bit shorter and a little bit easier. Because he could have said that an hour ago when they were having conversations in the hallway while all the consent docket was going on. But the hallway is my favorite place in every courthouse. All right,
Is anyone else having audio issues?
No.
All
right. Would it, I guess,
Your audio and video goes out, Bill.
for you, Martin, for
Yeah.
you too?
No.
No, I've heard Bill, but his video's been gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably for the best.
Bill, just let us know when you cut out each time, and we'll bring it back
Thank you.
around. All right. We are not calling 2021.
I wanted to update. So Roxana emailed postponement request for the one that we were calling on the consent docket.
So then I'll recall 2022-103.
Yes.
2022-103. It is 1803 Eastern Avenue. The appellant is Derek Falcon and Cloudy Donut Company, and that matter is going to be postponed.
Yes. We don't have a
Yeah.
new date yet, just postponed.
No due date yet. No new date yet. All right. So I'm gonna call, I think that we have well, hold on.
Three
So
more.
2022-343, the address is 808 South Ann Street. That one is being postponed, as Katie mentioned before. It's postponed just to April the 5th because of a quorum issue. So if anyone tuned in late for that one, we are not going to hear that today. Come back in 2 weeks. We have 3 left, and the order that we're going to go in is going to be 2021-361, then 2022-109, then 2022-104. Okay. So let's start with 2021-361. The address is 237 South Conkling Street. The appellant is East Coast Management. And its use premises is 2 dwelling units, and the variance is required for off-street parking. Martin, you're up.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Planning Department has reviewed this application, notes that this property was previously authorized for use as a retail goods establishment with alcoholic beverage sales, which is a non-conforming use or prohibited use, and the proposed use of this property would extinguish this non-conforming use of the property. The property is suitable in the opinion of the department for 2 dwelling units. There could be 1 parking space provided. There is a rear garage building, which could either remain or be torn down to provide a parking pad. For these reasons, the department has no objection to the application. Thank you.
All
Uh,
right.
so the application, the way the property currently exists, as Mr. French stated, there is one dwelling unit above, one commercial space below. So there are two existing uses on the site, one residential, one commercial. The applicant seeks to turn the commercial space into a residential space. The result would be then two dwelling units. So in order to add, or in order to change from commercial to residential for one unit, a minimum lot area of 3,000 square feet is required. 2,404 square feet exists, so a variance of 596 square feet is requested. For two spaces, we need two off-street, it would be a variance to two off-street parking spaces. So to bring the board up to date, in 2017 through 2017-059, the board actually approved the exact application that we have before us. However, the property owner failed to obtain their use and occupancy for that second dwelling unit. And they asked for an extension not until 2021, but because so much time had passed, we couldn't put that on the extension docket, so they had to reapply. Historically, the BMZA has interpreted residential conversions from a single-family dwelling structure to a multifamily, adding two units. So essentially what we have is taking a non-residential use and turning it into a residential use. At the end of the day, you're gonna have a multifamily because there's two dwelling units. But it's not per se a conversion from a single family structure into splitting it into two units because there were two uses. So because this is a little funky, that's why this one is on the regular docket. There is no opposition. And Mia
Well-
Rogers is here.
I have a question about that. The sign that was posted on the, well, I don't, I'm not sure, the sign or the application. Basically, if people, because this is in the same neighborhood where, there are people complaining, I guess it's towards the Highlandtown side, but if people knew that there was going to be a parking variance asked for, would they be here to oppose it? Or was it?
It's for two dwelling units, so that would necessitate essentially that parking variance request. So on the application, it has, it's essentially the MFD, which requires the variance for parking.
Is that something that people would, I just don't, well, maybe I'm overthinking this, but if people knew that there was a parking variance, but, or if the necessary conversion from a commercial unit to a dwelling unit makes it a multifamily and that triggers the parking variance, but I don't know if that's any different than people just saying, this is already a multifamily, I want one more unit and there's a parking variance, like I don't.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like one
Okay.
more, you know, it's that swap out, and Mr. French, correct me if I'm wrong, it's that swap out of the commercial for residential piece behind it. It's kind of interesting that there was no parking requirement for the commercial use, but there's the parking requirement for the residential use.
And the zoning code requires one parking space on site for the additional dwelling unit being created. And the additional dwelling unit being created is proposed to be created by conversion of the commercial space to a residential space. And in the opinion of the department, the property can provide the off-street parking for that one additional dwelling unit. Therefore, there actually is not a parking variance required, but as Katie has said, there is a lot area variance that would be required associated with this to establish it as a multifamily dwelling in the R8 zoning district.
So if the applicant chooses not to provide parking on site, they would need a variance to the street parking.
So
would
do they need
only
to
be
come back
providing
to
the
us
parking
for that?
Well, I've got the applicant here, Miss Rogers, and maybe she can explain to us if she is planning on having parking on site.
Okay.
So, Miss Rogers, you're unmuted.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to comment. So as you had mentioned, that this application was previously approved, the exact same application back in 2017. However, the owner at the time misunderstood the parameters of the stipulation of time, where they only had a year to get the property, the use and occupancy certificate. Had they, got the use and occupancy certificate, we wouldn't be here right now. But because they, was under a different consumption mind frame, that there was no time constraint, this is why we're here. And as far as parking is concerned, in this particular area, it is a mixed area where there's a lot of commercial and residential. However, on this street, both sides of the street, particularly on Conklin, there is no parking issue. Even with the daycare next door, there's no parking issue. I have provided pictures on different days where parking is not a problem at all. So even with a variance or without a variance, there's no parking issue as far as, if anybody's going to complain. Like, this is not the previous case at all, even though it's in a, similar area or close by. But on this particular street, on both sides of the street, there's no parking issues on any given day.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
No.
All right. Well, thank you. And we will take your matter up in deliberation.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.
All right. I am going to exercise executive privilege right now and take a 5-minute break before we lay into this last one.
We have one more. We have one.
No. Okay, never mind. Let's do it. You're right.
22-109.
22-109, 2510 Madison Avenue. My bad. After that, we'll take our break. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let me do that again. 2022-109. The address is 2510 Madison Avenue. Martin, this one's on you. And the appellant is, I apologize. Arm Construction / Anthony Marriott.
All right. Martin?
Yeah. Anything from planning?
Yes, this property, the application is being reviewed by the planning department. This property is located in the Utah Place, Madison Avenue Local Historic District, and therefore under the terms of the zoning code, specifically subsection 5-308, the board could not only approve this and variance is required if the property's use or the alterations had been approved by the Historical and Architectural Preservation Commission. And to our knowledge, that application has not been considered and approved by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. The department is therefore recommending deferral of a complete hearing of this application to allow the applicants time to obtain approval for the proposed improvements from the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Just piggybacking on what Mr. French just said, it's the construction of a 2-story attached garage with a rooftop deck in the rear yard. So it would require an interior side yard setback, the full 10 feet, 0 side yard setback is being proposed, and also a full rear yard setback, which is 25 feet that's required. As Mr. French said, he does not yet have CHAP approval. So essentially without CHAP approval, can't go forward with the construction. If CHAP does approve it, then we have the variances in front of us. I do not see Anthony Marriott here listed. If you are here for this particular matter, please raise your hand or put in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to go to the 2 call-in users. So if you are here for 2510 Madison Avenue, please speak up after you hear 2 beeps. All right, next caller. Okay, I do not see a hand raised yet. Becky, help me out, see if I'm missing anyone. Alright,
I don't see anything.
all right, so it doesn't appear we have anybody for this one, so,
All right, we'll hold on to this one till maybe after the next one. Probably just end up getting postponed to another day.
okay, all right.
Yeah, but, all right. It is exactly 3 o'clock right now, 10 after 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we'll take a break, and then the last case that we have is 2022-104, Justin Williams is
Right.
the representing the applicant.
all right.
All right, we'll see you guys in 10 minutes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Man, I'm really struggling with this audio today.
Well, Bill, it'd be good to see you in person.
Yep.
That's the only audio I'm concerned about.
All right, so Mr. French, we have you back? There he is.
Leland?
I'm here, guys.
All
All
right,
right.
we're all ready to go.
All right, we are back on the record, pretending I'm a judge. We're back on the record with our last contested case for today. It's 2022-104, the east side of Ponca Street / 350 Fort North Boston Street? Front North Boston
Front
Street,
North
maybe.
Boston Street, yeah, front.
Yeah.
Or
The
no,
appellant is
350 feet north, like I guess it's 350 feet north Boston Street, right, Mr. French?
353,
sure.
350 feet north
Club
of the head
Euphor-
of Boston Street.
Right.
Club Euphoria is the appellant, represented by Justin Williams. Martin, do you want to go first, or Katie, do you want to go first with kind of the background? Maybe Katie should go first, and then we'll get the planning's perspective on this, I think.
That
Yeah.
works. Okay. So what we have is a project to use the premises for a restaurant and tavern with live entertainment and dancing, outdoor seating in conjunction with an existing restaurant and tavern use that's located on the adjacent property at 1301 Ponca Street. The conditional use requested is restaurant tavern with live entertainment and dancing. We have letters in opposition in the file from the Greektown Neighborhood Association, from the entire legislative district, legislative delegation from District 46, as well as Zeke Cohen, councilman for the district. Planning recommends disapproval. Mr. French will go into the details, but the issues surrounding the application are that live entertainment is not authorized as a principal use or an accessory use to a restaurant or tavern in the I2 zone. The live entertainment use also conflicts with the Canton Industrial Area Urban Renewal Plan. The use at the adjacent property, 1301 Ponca Street, is a non-conforming use, and this use, and non-conforming uses cannot be expanded. There is no structure on the lot that the application is seeking to, that is seeking the use. And the lot at 1301 Ponca Street is owned by one entity, and the lot that is the subject of this appeal is owned by another entity. And so we have, so I'll turn this back over to Mr. French, and then I've made Mr. Williams a panelist. And Mr. Williams, please let me know if there's anybody else I need to elevate to a panelist for you.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property was, or part of it was, part of Toon Street originally. The department does not have access to a record of when this property may have been reverted from public use to private use. However, it is a separate property. It's zoned I2 under the current zoning code, and it is also in the Canton Industrial Area Urban Renewal Area. The department noted that there is, according to records available to it, no record of a last authorized use of the property. The use of the property for a restaurant or a tavern is approvable under the I-2, but entertainment, live, accessory, or principal use to principal use or accessory to a restaurant or tavern is not listed as a permitted or a conditional use and therefore is not allowed. So the applicant would be asking for the creation of a non-conforming use, which the zoning code does not authorize. There is no record of any use and occupancy permit for use of this property for a restaurant, a tavern, or for live entertainment accessory to a restaurant or tavern on this site. More specifically, the department also notes that the urban renewal plan for the Canton industrial area contained this statement: heavy industrial, which is the area that this property is in, designated in the urban renewal plan. The following uses are specifically excluded. And the second listing is restaurants and lunchrooms offering live entertainment and/or dancing. Therefore, the proposed use of the property may in fact be also prohibited by the urban renewal plan for the Canton industrial area. This particular urban renewal plan was created in 1990. It was last amended in 2019, and therefore, unless the applicant could show that the use proposed in this appeal predates either that amendment or the actual adoption of the industrial area plan in 1990, the department believes this should not be allowed because it would be in violation of the urban renewal plan. For these reasons, the department recommends disapproval of the application because the zoning code does not authorize entertainment live, either as a principal use or as a use accessory to a principal use of a tavern or a restaurant in the I-2 zoning district in which the property is located. The department would have no objection to use of the property for a restaurant or tavern only. And the department notes that the conflicting provisions of the urban renewal plan require that the board disapprove this application, even if it may in fact be approvable under the zoning code. Thank you.
I was muted. Okay, we'll go, Mr. Williams, it's on you now.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We have at least one participant following Galan, who is the operator, owner of
Got it.
Oria.
Okay, I see him. I'll go ahead and make him a panelist. So Mr. Galan, I've also just unmuted you. Do you need the ball, Mr. Williams?
I don't think so. We'll see if my new fangled Chiron will show up, make it easier
Look
for
at
everybody.
you. Look at that.
That's
Yeah.
fancy.
Right when the
Just-
pandemic's over, I got this set up.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, go ahead.
Great. I guess, well, at the outset, well, I'll get to it in a minute, but just to frame the issues for you, we said push back on Ms. Burns' presentation or explanation. There's a provision in the zoning code that we're going under, which is 18-302B, which allows the expansion of a non-conforming use. So that's kind of the high picture request here, is that we're seeking the board's approval to expand the use. And really, it's an existing use, and we'll get to that, existing footprint of Euphoria and Euphoria's outdoor area. But we're seeking to legalize it because it just came to Euphoria's attention that they didn't have the zoning authorization, although I'll present evidence that shows it goes back to 2002, the use, which is before Euphoria got there. So let me go, I guess I'll use my pictures here. Anyway, we'll go through the application overview. I want to foreground and go over the community concerns and kind of touch on those up front, give you the additional background, the existing conditions of the property. You're going to hear from the owner, operator, Mr. Galan. Then I'll go into the request for relief and the standards that you should be applying as a board. So this is the existing property. It's at the 350 feet north of Boston Street, next to 1301 Ponca Street. So you'll see it's two separate lots now. I think Ms. Byrne also mentioned. Go ahead.
Excuse me, I can't see that at all. Can you, in the past, you put these things up to full screen. Can you do that again?
Sure. Let me the ball then from Spurn.
I can see it, yeah, but it's a little bit blurry. I understand what Bill is.
Okay. Oh well.
Your technology is fancy and good, but
I'm not good enough.
almost.
Let me, okay, I have the ball. I will share screen.
Oh, that's much better for my eyes.
Okay. Oh well, all that fancy work for nothing. Okay. Where should I look in here? Sorry, let me change my view. Sorry, I don't know why it's loading. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for bearing with me. Um, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, this is an application to continue the existing use of Euphoria, the nightclub and bar, which is currently at 1301 Ponca Street, and as well as the 6820 lot 020A, as a tavern with live entertainment and outdoor live entertainment and outdoor seating and table service. Um, Here's the view of the parcels. Um, we have evidence showing back to 2002 that there was a use of both parcels for this live entertainment, outdoor service use. Um, Here's an aerial photo showing the area. It was listed as an expansion because we're technically seeking to formalize and get the board's approval of the existing condition, which will require, quote unquote, an expansion of the non-conforming use. As Mr. French mentioned, the use of the property as a tavern with dancing and outdoor seating table service is non-conforming. So we're technically expanding into this lot with the board's approval, but the existing footprint is what will remain, ideally. Here's a little easier to see. So here's the UNO that Euphoria has for 1301 Ponca Street. When they had the lease for the property and the current lease for the property they have, they understood the licensed area or the leased premises to include the entire square here. because in the field, and I'll show some, like it's one block 6820, lot 020A was the former bed of Tomb Street, which was closed and acquired by the landlord here. Just some more background for Euphoria. They employ between 60 and 70 people. They have hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales tax revenue alone, plus amusement tax, and plus the employment revenue for people. And I was thinking to myself, I think it's one of the fewer remaining upscale nightlife places that cater to Black and brown people. And so that's something we'll get into with some potential concerns from the community. But for the board's background, the applicant before and sort of separate and apart from this zoning hearing entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Greektown Neighborhood Association. It had been in the works since August 2020. And I heard in the either pre-meeting or in the first case, Mr. Cunningham mentioned the desirability of including the MOU in or having that as an option for zoning enforcement. And it's one of the conditions we'd be amenable to here is making the MOU a part of the board's approval here. Also, so this is the provision of the code I referenced that we're seeking approval under, that we are seeking to quote unquote expand, but again, the existing footprint would remain the same. But we're seeking to get approval to expand a non-conforming use, which can be done by the 25% as of that which lawfully existed as of June 5th, 2017, which are, we have the UNO permit to show we were lawfully approved to use the property back then. Here are the standards to look at. So the big picture is the board is authorized to grant by variance the non-conforming use expansion. The kind of the high key reason or the high level reason we're looking, or we think the board has the authority here, is the minimum lot size for any lot in the I2 area, which is a heavy industrial zone, is 20,000 square feet. The lot at issue here is only 12,153 square feet. So any use of this parcel would have to get a variance to make it usable. Way ahead. Got it. Okay, so then, yeah, just to quickly stress that the stakeholder concerns, the community, I guess at the outset, I know there's letters of opposition, maybe people to testify against the use or the application up front. We would just note that this is a zoning hearing about the use of land, and if there are concerns about operational issues, I know it's hard for the board to discern and wade through them. For example, we think the liquor board would be better positioned to do so with the renewal process and any specific issues. And we just also note, again, for the record, that we would make the MOU with the community association a condition of the zoning board's approval, so that if there were a violation of the MOU that were substantiated, it would be a violation of the board's order, which would come back to the board. But again, one reason we think the board is in a difficult spot is how we, as a city and people, continually learn how the prejudice and implicit bias can play a role in community views and beliefs and decision making. And this timely article came in the Baltimore Sun on March 9th that discusses the issues that are faced by Black Baltimore restaurant owners. We're not alleging specific racial prejudice here, and I don't intend to cross-examine any people who might testify in opposition, but we just ask the board to keep in mind the possibility that there are some issues that can be misattributed to Euphoria that they're raising in the community, especially in the city with an endemic littering problem, an endemic violence problem. I just would ask you to be leery of attributing proximate cause to Euphoria and Euphoria only here. Here's more of the article, just from the Baltimore Sun, explaining how there's lots of 311 calls that come from community members that happen to be against minority-owned businesses. And That's been the case here. So we went through the liquor board records available online, and there are 27 complaints online from the liquor board system. All but one were unsubstantiated. And that's the one here where the agent asked the base level to be turned down, and they did so. And that was that. But there are many, many other ones here, and it's highlighted a few. For example, uh, there was complaints about people in the community, and the liquor board inspector went out and said, wrote down in his notes, the activities are not emanating from a licensed establishment. Complaint not substantiated. And not to belabor the point further, but again, this was a complaint that was received when staff was on site, and they were able to say with certainty there was no disturbance here that merited it. And I guess as part of the MOU process, and I think this point we'll make, to the extent there are legitimate concerns and issues raised by the community, Euphoria has taken steps to improve its relationship with the community. They've entered into the MOU, as I mentioned. Here's a picture of them, like a turkey giveaway. Part of the MOU discusses security concerns and security personnel need to be hired. They've retained the services of the sheriff's deputies, and they have between 4 and 6 off-duty sheriffs on duty at Euphoria on top of their normal security staff to provide extra security for the area. A concern that's always been raised, and that was in some of the 311 calls, was the sanitation issues. And again, this is like you saw in the 311 complaints, some of the trash concerns were unsubstantiated, but they all were. But nonetheless, Euphoria's agreed to be a good neighbor, and they've to clean up the neighborhood blocks and blocks away. So like the top left picture, I believe, is the 900 block of Ponca Street. So a few blocks, 4 or 5 blocks north of the property an issue here. And they're out there cleaning up the site. They have also, for example, just yesterday, agreed to provide a dumpster for the Greek Independence Day cleanup that the neighborhood association is throwing. I guess there's one idea, and so to the extent there are concerns raised about continuing issues with Euphoria, one idea I just had discussed with my client was a residential parking permit program. The concern tends to be that the patrons of Euphoria are parking 4 or 5 blocks north of the site into the residential community. And to the extent that's true, and to the extent that the patrons are causing issues with parking or littering, one solution would be to institute a RPP program. And if that were the community's desire, Euphoria would be happy to take the lead on that and defray fees for signing people up and getting people on board with that program. Here's the RPP area. You'll see like in green, the Bayview area has the RPP already. But with the R56 coming online too, there may be more pressure in this community area. So there may be a desire to work together on an issue that, Euphoria can help with. Okay. It's just, so here's some just basic background and information about the property. So get into the actual zoning issues here. So you'll see the combined property areas here is highlighted in red. It's zoned I2. The site to the bottom is IMU2. That was actually just recently rezoned to allow for future Popeyes. It's all in the Canton industrial area, and it's in the first council district. You'll see the area here where the Euphoria is located. And like I said, a vacuum, from my view as a not licensed urban planner, but someone who does this often, it seems like this is the location you'd want a nightclub use, tucked away in an industrial area, which is further away from residential areas, but also has a different time of day use than industrial users. So there would be less conflicts between people going to work at the warehouse or factory and patrons attending the venue. So here are some more aerial photos just showing the existing conditions as they are in the field. The block 6820, lot 20A is the former bed of Toon Street, which was closed, showing that here. This is the recent tax put online, but we have the a deed from the city in 2012 closing Toon Street and conveying it to the landlord. So yeah, the basic background of history of the property is that we have evidence dating back to 1968 showing that the use of Ponca Street as a tavern existed here. In 2002, your predecessors approved the use of the property as a tavern with live entertainment and dancing, and they, at the time, specifically found the expanded use of an outdoor lot was permitted. Even under the urban renewal plan. So the board finds the proposed expansion of the conditional use to the outdoor area as a tavern with live entertainment and dancing is not specifically excluded by the urban renewal plan. This is the plat that was contained with the approval, and you'll see that it only included 1301 Ponca Street because Toon Street at the time was still a public street. Here is the document showing the city's closure of Toon Street, and it'll show the bottom. The roadbed of Toon Street has been physically, if not legally, incorporated into the adjacent business operations, which demonstrates, like in the field, to an observer or to my client, the future lessee of the property, that looked and appeared as if it were one large lot. Here, this is from Ted Atwood, DGS director from my time in City Hall. The memo notes that the adjoining property owner had been leasing the area already. I'm trying to attempt to find the copy of the lease to help substantiate the use of the property, ideally as outdoor live entertainment, but cannot be able to do so. The reason this is before you right now is that it was only recently discovered that there was no zoning approval to use the bed of Toon Street, which is now that lot 020A, as a nightclub, outdoor seating area, restaurant use. There was an environmental control board hearing some months ago, maybe last summer, with the landlord and his representatives attended, and they specifically, I guess they had a witness testify to his use of the property dating back to 2001, 2003, in which he used Toon Street for outdoor staging and bar area. I imagine it would be sort of like how today when you get a permit to do outdoor seating in any part of the city that's on a sidewalk, your permit would be attached to the property, but you would be authorized by the city for zoning purposes to use that sidewalk. So that's possible that Mr. Trujillo got the approval to use 1301 Ponca Street, but also at the same time went into the bed of Toon Street. I guess with that out of the way, I just wanted to quickly have you hear from Mr. Golan to put a face to the issue here, and I guess and give a little more context to the potential hardship you'd face if there were denial of the non-conforming use request and variance. I'll stop sharing my screen if I can.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Williams?
Absolutely.
So I guess you're claiming that the issues raised by the planning department related to the urban renewal plan are not valid?
Yes, I'm saying that there is, I mean, well, first of all, the board or your predecessors already approved or confirmed that in their view, the URP did not prohibit the proposed use. I'll get to it, I guess, in a later slide, but basically the URP reads as restaurant. It excludes the use of restaurants with live entertainment, but not taverns with live entertainment. At the time, taverns with live entertainment were a different use than restaurants with live entertainment. And so that's the rationale that the 2002 board decision followed. And nothing has changed in the URP language to um, disturb the BMZA's finding there. And so to the extent, I don't know if it's not uh, authoritatively binding on you and your decision making, but I guess it should be persuasive. And that's basically the same facts. Nothing has really changed since 2002 as far as the URP language and the proposed use here.
Thank you.
Okay. Following, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm hoping you guys can hear me.
Is your camera on too? Yeah. Okay, I see you now. Great.
Hi, my name is Frawley. I'm the current owner at Euphoria. I've been there a total of 9 years now. My space is what I believe is a great space. I do employ, 60 to 70 people, sometimes even more, which are city residents as well. We constantly work with the community. We have communication. I really applaud the Greektown community. Even though we have differences and stuff, we always find a way to work together. Even now, like in the middle of a zoning hearing, I know the parade is in a couple days, you know, I'll reach out and say, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Even though we're going through a battle, it's still like, there's still outreach there. They have a great president, it's a new president, which is Trish. She's really good, really good person to work with, but she's completely understanding. It's like, hey, I have to do what's best for the community. We can have a meeting, come to the meeting, we'll receive you, and I said, regardless of anything, regardless of what happens, I want to continue to use what I already have, but regardless of what happens, I'm still part of this community. I'm still going to work with you guys, so I just asked the board just to make a decision based on, what the real decision is, which is the land use. I From my understanding, this was all one big parcel. Last year, it came to me and inspections and inspectors and told me, hey, this is another parcel. You're going to have to go through a zoning process. That's when I contacted Justin, and here we are. But, we are willing to work with the community, work with security. I am currently in an MOU with them, which I went under my own free will. We sat down, we spoke about the issues, we put an MOU together for what we currently have. And things are not perfect always, but we are people that we work together. Hey, I had an issue with this. Okay, I'll see what I can do next week about bettering it. Hey, we have an issue with trash. Hey, why don't we set up a cleaning day? Hey, there's an issue with public safety. Okay, I'll add 2 more sheriffs directly in the neighborhood, which is far away from my property. But, it's things that we do, we're not talking about what we can do, we're actually doing things. And some things we're proactive and some things we fix after the fact. But the whole thing is here, we have been here a while. I have new neighbors. So before there wasn't Athena Square, there wasn't, 3 new gas stations that we have in the area, a new mechanic shop. Our urban renewal plan is a great thing, I believe, for the community, but we can't forget the people also that were kind of already there. So I I enjoy the space. I'm a good businessman, I consider myself, and I've been there 8 years. So this is not a space that we're trying to open. This is just legalizing what we have. So this went from being what I thought was one big lot to this is 2 lots. So I need you to get zoned for the other back of your space to continue to use it. You
So
know, that's why.
Fran, can you talk to the board? I mean, I guess sort of common sense, but help to spell it out, like the hardships you've already faced as an industry during the pandemic.
Uh, yes, I can talk about it. I really don't like talking about hardships because I'm a very positive person. But yeah, COVID has hit the hospitality industry in a way that it's unbearable. So closing my outdoor area it'll be devastating. It'll be devastating for a lot of people that work with us, and devastating for me as an owner. I would consider the outdoor area the lung of the business. You know, it's a key part of what Euphoria is, and we're offering a service just like anything else. And this is, in my opinion, one of the best places to have it. We're in a heavy industrial area, you know, so you come out of my club, you have to walk 5 blocks anywhere before you see the first house, 5 long city blocks, roughly. You know, so it's different from like Canton Square where you come out and you're on somebody's doorstep. You know, if we want a club, if the kid's been there 8 years, I mean, it's not like we put a residential area right next door to him and now we have this conflict. You know, if you look at the maps, you know, I have around me a list, like my neighbor's a heavy industrial equipment repair shop. I have 3 major gas stations from Wawa to Royal Farms with 20 pumps apiece. I have 2 mechanic shops, GAF roofing plant equipment, about 3 railroad tracks around me. Um, my neighbor on, you know, the rear side of the building is 895 north and south. On the left side of the building, I have 95 north and south. You know, so usually if I have people from out of town, they usually get to the light and make a left and they're on the highway on the way home. You know, besides that, we have a metal recycling plant. That's also my neighbor. You know, it's a heavy industrial area. Like
You've
I
also
can't.
mentioned in the past, like there's a bus stop, like a coach bus stop that's out near you. Is that
Yes,
right?
there used to be a bus stop in Travel Plaza, and there's several buses around there that let out also. And then we have the huge new BJ's. I mean, I like what's going on with the area, but it's like I've seen all these things being developed around me, you know? So it's like I'm not the oldest guy on the block, but I've been there a while, and I've shown not just by mouth, but by actions that I'm willing to work with my community. You know, even through a zoning hearing, like we're still, you know, I want to still work and help with the parade and do certain things because I believe, you know, it's actions. It's not just, hey, yeah, I'll get involved now that I need something. No, we've been involved. You know, we've
That's
already have an MOU in place, which is an agreement that we've done with each other, you know, to basically be able to, hey, these are your rules to operate. When we have an issue with this, we're going to come to you and you have to fix it. You have to be proactive. You have to be involved. And to this point, from my side, I believe I have. So
yeah, that's thorough. That's great. And I guess just to wrap it up for the board's benefit, so do you guys discuss the hardship specifically if this request were denied and you had to reduce the footprint of the outdoor area?
well, reducing the footprint of the outdoor area will reduce, obviously, economically tremendously for the business. We do really well on sales. Um, we are also, you know, sales taxpayers. We provide a level of entertainment for people, you know, which we're also creating memories in the city. We're giving people a reason to come to our city. You know, this is one of our key venues, if not the biggest city venue. And what better place to have it than in a heavy industrial area? You know, as far as employees, oof, that's when I kind of get wiggly because I wouldn't know how to fire 40 people, but that's what I would have to do. Um, there are other stakes. It's not just neighbors and community, but you do have an owner operator that's willing to work.
That's great. I mean, that's really helpful. I think, I'll go through the standards the board should review, and I guess you can stay by and let me know if I'm missing anything. I'll go back to sharing my screen. So the relief requested specifically, again, I kind of foreshadowed it up front, is that we're asking the board to allow the quote unquote expansion of the non-conforming accessory live entertainment outdoor seating use to legally exist. The board is allowed to grant approval by variance of the expansion of the non-conforming use by 25%. The applicant would then obtain the proper permits to do, I guess, well, the UNO, and then also any outdoor equipment or staging. The existing footprint or area of 1301 Ponca Street is 14,086 square feet. So an approval of 25% of that expansion would be a 3,517 feet square foot portion of that block to be used. Like I mentioned, I think this is a question that Mr. Cunningham had about the urban renewal plan and planning position. Again, the board, yourselves, previously already found that the expansion from 1301 Ponca Street itself to expand to have outdoor entertainment was not excluded by the urban renewal plan. Just to go into that a little more detail, so you have that background for you. So like other urban renewal plans in the same time period that cover industrial areas specifically do call out taverns as a separate use. So here, for example, it says restaurants and lunchrooms, including live entertainment and dancing, are prohibited, and taverns, including live entertainment and dancing, are prohibited. This is from the Carroll Camden Urban Renewal Plan. Conversely, this is the Canton Industrial Area Plan, the one at issue here. And you'll see the uses excluded are just restaurants and lunchrooms offering live entertainment or dancing. I don't know, I guess, the provenance or where that came from in 1990, but one guess would be that if the bar had been operating or tavern had been operating at 1301 Ponca Street since the 1960s, perhaps that operator got the city council members to specifically exclude taverns as a use. And also, another argument is that taverns, like I've mentioned, taverns with live entertainment are a use that you might not be okay. You'd be okay with having an industrial area because the time at which the tavern live entertainment nightclub use occurs is different than the industrial daytime use in these areas. I think it was the issue that Ms. Byrne raised about the expansion of an accessory use. Maybe it was the planning staff report too, was the distinction that you can expand across a parcel line. I guess at the outset, I'll mention, I'll say it towards the end too, we'd be amenable to a condition if that were a holdup to consolidating both lots. The landlord, the owner of both parcels is related. They're separate entities, but it's the landlord is a husband and wife team, and so they did not want us to consolidate. But if that's what it is required, I guess we could explore that if that's what the board desired. But I'll note there's plenty of precedent already to allow expansions of accessory uses outside a parcel boundary. So, for example, consider that Fells Point. There's all those sidewalks are in the right of way. They are a separate parcel from the privately owned building. To expand outdoor seating there, and that happens routinely. A good example of crossing parcel lines in the street for Ouzo Bay and for Ouzo Beach. The permit for Ouzo Beach, located in 800 South Central Avenue, which is a parcel owned by the Mayor and City Council, is attached to 1000 Lancaster Street, which is where the Ouzo Bay property is. That's just one example of how the accessory use expanded across not just a parcel, but also a right of way. And here's pictures too, showing the large outdoor area and outdoor live entertainment that occurs there. So this is just go through the actual standards to consider as a board to approve this. Again, so it's going under 18-302B to expand by 25% across the parcel line from 1301 Ponca Street. There's a lot of findings here, so I'll go through them quickly, but of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. The principal finding for granting a variance is that, and I've heard Ms. Witt hammer this a couple times now in your post-hearing deliberation, is that to grant a variance, the board must find there's a peculiar uniqueness about the property, such as the particular physical surroundings, the shape, the topographical conditions, or the specific land or structure involved that caused the hardship or difficulty. So here, the hardship is pretty straightforward. The minimum size of a lot in the I2 zoning district is 20,000 square feet. Here, both parcels are small, undersized. As Mr. Gahn just mentioned, the rear of his site is buttressed by 895. So in other situations, maybe if you're not a larger lot, you'd expand naturally, or you'd go and try to acquire land from neighbors. But here, the only place to go is north on a parcel that's already too small. So both parcels would need a variance under today's code. The other required findings here, this is 5308B. There's several here. I'll just go through the highlights here. So this gets back to the uniqueness, which we just discussed, that the parcels are unique because they're both undersized. The board has to find that the hardship or difficulty is not caused by a person with present interest in the property. The hardship is the size of the lots. A lot of issue came from the Marion City Council undersized because it's a former roadbed. So that is the reason for the hardship. You have to find that the purpose of the variance is not based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the property. Obviously, I mean, we're seeking to keep the existing footprint to maintain income and value, but also to provide continued employment for their full staff and additional safety and convenience in case there are future waves, knock on wood, of COVID pandemic and future Greek letters, to have additional outdoor area space for patrons. The variance, and the board must find that the variance would not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity, nor diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood. So we note that, again, we're not expanding the use, we're keeping the existing footprint. We have the MOU with the community association, which we would agree to make a part of this board's approval. We'd also note that, as we mentioned a few times, that we're in an industrial area just off 895 and Boston Street, surrounded by industrial properties that are not open during existing hours. We would also note, this is we'll zoom in on the map of the area. By comparison, places where this use would be allowed by right would be C3, tavern with live entertainment, and, for example, 901 Ponca Street, 4820 O'Donnell Street, Yard 56, all would allow those uses by right, which would be more impactful to the neighborhood and to the community. And just to have some data for you for the property values, the Greek town, like most areas of the city, for anyone looking for housing, has noticed that property values are increasing here as well. So the existing condition clearly cannot be said to be injurious to the property values in the neighborhood. More in the URP, just to hammer this home. We've gone through the past precedents, so I'll skip that. But the objectives and goals of the Canton Industrial Area URP are to encourage compatible development and to encourage redevelopment of unused or underutilized parcels to provide jobs and tax benefits. And this is what is happening here. It's providing jobs and benefits of what would be an underutilized parcel. I've also included a provision from the city's comprehensive master plan showing one of the goals is to improve nightlife, entertainment, and recreational experiences for visitors and residents. And this is one of those places that provides recreational nightlife activities for patrons and visitors. Yeah, and finally, the public interest provision that this variance will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, general welfare, or morals, or be contrary to the public interest. Again, we're not expanding; we'd be keeping the existing footprint. And while they wrote a letter to oppose the requested relief, the letter from the Greektown Neighborhood Association does note there's been an improvement in activity or what they view as Euphoria's impact on the community. Again, we are distant from residential areas. The applicant has requested and would be seeking to operate the business, which would be a place for young adults primarily, and catering to a majority of a Black and brown crowd, which has different issues than it does in a majority white crowd. And I think that is cause for some of the conflict here, and not all of it. Maybe there's obviously people with varying views here, but we have some evidence from 311 calls that there are some unsubstantiated complaints here. And I think it's something to keep in mind here. The applicant is doing a lot to mitigate that and meet the community halfway. And also would just note the public interest is not just the residents in the vicinity, but also people, the stakeholders in the city and the region, not just employees at Euphoria, which would be 60 or 70, but also patrons who would enjoy having a good time and having a safe place to have fun, and I guess feel comfortable in their own skin. The applicant serves the city and the neighborhood in a number of ways and is increasing his involvement with trash collection and turkey giveaways and a dumpster donation. And then I think there'll be more community benefits going forward. I think so. With we would submit, I guess, and just save time for any questions or closing if there are any complaints or concerns raised by the community.
I have a question.
Yes.
We've talked about, well, you've talked about the MOU a number of times. Do we have that MOU?
I sent a copy just the other day to Miss Witt and Miss Byrne. And the version I have is only signed by my client. So I mean, I'm hopefully can get one from Greektown for the board's records.
We do have a representative of Greektown on the call, which I'll call her out. I was planning on calling her once Mr. Williams was done.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a few questions if no one's going to go at the moment. If that's okay. Well, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your argument. Well, first, there is the area you're requesting for the expansion. That's the only outdoor area. Is that right, or is that incorrect?
So there's an existing outdoor area on they've been approved for. Clearly, they're approved to use what is called 1301 Ponca Street. Let me find out.
Mr. Williams, would it help? Want me to pull up like Codemap, which is the most recent photo? Would that help?
Sure. Yeah, but sure.
And then, because I think it'd be helpful if you walk, the board through the location. So I'm going to take the ball back from you.
Sure.
Great. So let me share. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Hold on. All right. So this is Codemap. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right. So if I go right on top of it, you'll see it's a little off, but this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Williams, 1301 Ponca, right?
Correct.
And then this is the no street address, the east side of blah, 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 blah. And
Correct.
then Toon Street, technically, like it's a little off, should be right here, right? Kind of
That
where
sounds,
this,
yeah,
right,
right. I mean,
right
don't have a
about where
survey,
this
but I
would line.
imagine that top line, yeah, would match up with the fence. So probably move everything
Yeah,
down
so
3 or 4
everything
feet.
should kind of go down like 3 or 4 feet. So this is Ponca. And so the original everything tied to this block and lot, right?
Right, and so that seems to be pretty clearly approved. And then so the issue would be if the board denied this request, we would have to cut back the north side
This piece.
parcel. Yeah,
Because it goes over it's like the lot lines are here. So this is parcel A, this is parcel B. They're two separate parcels. So this is the original 1301 Ponca where all of the original approvals were. And it's I guess you said your client thought it was all one, and so believe that this to be the full, thought he had all 4 corners, I guess, so to speak.
yeah, that's fair. Yep, and like because in the
What-
field, this looks like
Yeah.
open area.
Sure, what made him think that it was all one? Was it when it was leased to him almost a decade ago? Was it like, here's everything? Or was it just like, no one's using this, no one's using it, so we're gonna start using it?
I guess I'll conjecture for him. He can speak up too. I think my understanding is that, yeah, the landlord at that time owned both parcels. The city had closed Toon Street and conveyed it to the landlord or landlord's related entity. And so the landlord of 1301 and that descriptive lot 020A were one and the same. And so when he conveyed the lease and said, here you go, you can use the property as you will. And um, didn't think or know that expanding across that lot line would be a zoning violation. In fact, it seems like no one knew for 10 years that that was an issue, despite lots of scrutiny and inspections. No one had raised an issue until I guess someone looked someone had a Miss Burns fancy aerial map and looked down.
What's proposed for what Ms. Byrne described as parcel B?
So really just maintaining that same condition. There was an issue with the permits for like the stage area or the lack thereof, perhaps because of the UNO permit issue. So the idea or the plan is if the board were to approve this, would basically keep that existing footprint and build things to code and with architecturally designed facilities.
I'm talking about what looks like a vacant property to the left of that. Yeah, right there.
So
That would remain the same because, well, in theory, the outdoor area for entertainment or drinking, dancing would only be 25% of
this guy.
This area really. So that's what yeah, exactly.
So there's no proposal for that street front property.
Correct. And I mean,
Is that a parking lot?
I guess it is parking. I don't think they use it. Mr. Galan can describe it. I think it just provides some parking, but it's basically unimproved. And it would remain so because we couldn't expand the use there.
Could you make it a parking lot? I don't know if that's inside the scope of this. If that's one of the concerns, and if he does indeed, if this is approved and it's all one, or if the two lots are, anyways, if he's in charge of it, like actually literally in charge of it, is it something that could be a parking lot, or is it just?
I think under the zoning code, it could be a principal use parking lot or perhaps principal use parking lot with accessory live entertainment on the north part of this or the eastern side of that lot. The landlord indicated that he does not want us to, I guess, improve it or improve that front area or make it a parking area. I'm not sure that's because there's longer term goals, but that was the position he made clear.
Who is the landlord?
The natural person is Steven Zadaris. I can't pronounce his. I think it's a Greek last name, but it should be on the system. I guess, and his wife and he own as trustees.
Right. So I think is this is this the trust property? Is 1301 Ponca? Is
I'm
that,
looking at it. I'm looking at CAT now, and this is what it's showing now is, I guess, ownership of 1301 Ponca Street is in, um, I believe it's Steve's Zadara's
so
wife.
I just clicked back to, can you guys see the map still? So this is 1301 is, yeah. Looks like Mrs. Zadara. And then the descriptive parcel is Steven Zadara Trust
Mhm.
or trustee. So then I'll click back over to the map. I think it's always good to see something. Yeah.
They
So,
also own the parcel next door as well.
This one or this
Oh.
one?
Yeah, the one
To the north?
to the north.
Okay.
Are those
so
shipping
I
containers?
just wanted to make sure I wanted to understood your argument, your legal argument. So basically, you're saying under 18302, because this is a industrial area, it falls under the exception, and therefore we may authorize a variance. That's your first argument, right?
So yeah, so right now, if this were a brand new lot in the I2 zone, the outdoor seating, live entertainment use would not be allowed because it's prohibited in having, as we're legally established. It's a non-conforming use, and under 18 and 302, we'd expand it by 25% with the board's approval.
And then your second part of your argument is that because there was a prior order that stated that the tavern, that specifically a tavern with live entertainment is allowed under the urban renewal plan, and therefore we can find it here. Is that what?
The planning staff position, Mr. French can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the urban renewal plan for the area does not allow the proposed use. I cited the zoning board decision from 2002 to show that your predecessors faced the same issue. Actually, the zoning board decision 2002 mentioned planning staff opposed it for the same reason, and then the zoning board at that time overruled the planning staff or didn't defer to planning staff and said it is not prohibited under the urban renewal plan. Only restaurants with live entertainment and I guess dancing are prohibited, but taverns with live entertainment and dancing are allowed or not excluded.
Okay. And you're only requesting the 3,517 expansion under 18302B, correct?
That'd be the maximum that I believe the board could approve.
And my last question before I hand it over to anyone else, for the hardship, he's the owner is stating that he would have to, and I guess he can answer this too, he would have to fire or get rid of 40 people. Mine is, so he still has the principal use of the primary structure, and that's typically what he uses. I'm assuming the outside use is only used in the summer, maybe spring, early fall. So why would we have to get rid of 40 people?
Well, basically, the outside use is not being used at all right now because of the zoning issue. They're not allowing me to use any part of the rear of the building. And the capacity, obviously, during the summertime increases. So we have shifts where we can put people on the inside of the building, but our capacity is way smaller. So a lot of people wouldn't be coming back to work basically because we're only using half of our space.
So you're saying right now you're not using any of the outdoor space, even when the weather is nice enough to use it, because even the space that you're rightfully, that's on your property that you could have used, you're not using. Yeah, because it's all hooked together, right?
Exactly, because both parcels are together. So in the event that any of my customers or anybody walks on the other side, then,
Yeah.
I'm technically doing something I'm not supposed to. So I'd rather close the whole space until I have a definite answer on how I can move forward instead of, oh, I'm sorry, those 10 people are sitting on that side of the table. It's hard. So I'd rather
Yeah.
refrain myself from using it than getting another violation.
I
But
understand.
there's people that will not be coming back to work being that basically your space is 60%, 50% smaller. That's what I was saying by I would have to cut the personnel because, there is no 15 waitresses anymore for 50% less tables. That's what I meant by having to let go of a couple people.
So you were using the whole space before, is that correct?
Yes, I've been using the whole space for about 7, 8 years now. This just became an issue of the zoning and came up to play now. And obviously, when it became an issue, I faced forward. I hired Justin and I explained to him what's going on, and here we are.
Okay, which means you weren't using part of that space legally.
Yes.
Okay.
But you didn't know.
No, I didn't know. I mean, I have an occupancy certificate and I have a fire inspection that gave me a capacity for the full outdoor. I get inspected every single year. I've had city inspections where, what's called the vice unit will come out and you have a city inspector, you have the health department, you have the fire, you know, I've been inspected, I don't even know how many times, numerous times, and this became an issue that aroused now and face front, I'm here to deal with it and hopefully continue to use my existing space.
What type of live entertainment do you provide?
We do provide DJs. We'll have maybe a band. It's not really frequent that we have a band, but we do have DJs. We do have stand-up comedy shows. Basically just live entertainment, but that's a meter right there. Most of the time we just have DJs and comedy shows and things like that, just giving people a reason to be in. It's a great outdoor space. Honestly, I really can't think of a better place to be.
Would you be willing to just use the outdoor space without live entertainment?
That's basically saying I wouldn't be able to play music. And that's the heart of being in an outdoor space in an outdoor area is being able to control your crowd by the music and the energy you flow through people is with music.
For your reference, Mr. Freeman, I guess the position has been from the zoning staff is that the amplified DJ, even if the DJ's inside, would still count as live entertainment.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the rest of the board, but I'd like to hear, like right now we're speculating as to a lot of what the opposition is going to say. Maybe if we hear from them, we'll be able to tailor our questions a little better also.
Okay.
So does anyone have any last questions before we hear from the opposition?
No.
All right, let's,
Okay, we'll move on to, I'm going to call Patricia Dunas. I so apologize, ma'am, for butchering your name there. So I'm going to jump you up, make you a panelist, and so let me unmute you. There you go. So you're unmuted.
Okay, let me just give me 1 second so that I can allow it.
Okay, you don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. You can
I'm just trying to get back to the meeting. You give me 1 second.
Sure.
All right. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for holding this hearing. So I'll go ahead and just start by telling you a little bit about Greektown, if that's okay. Just giving you, I'm not sure who's very familiar with the neighborhood. The neighborhood is in its own little nook. We really aren't connected to the city. It's hard to walk to the rest of the city. It's a pretty quiet neighborhood, a lot of families. It's very diverse, one of the most diverse neighborhoods in all of Baltimore. And a big percentage of the people who live here are the people who bought the houses when they were made, or the second homeowners. So it's a pretty cool neighborhood. And so in the space that Euphoria is in, I know because I actually grew up in the neighborhood. So my family all lives on the same street. I'm of Greek heritage, first generation myself. And so I know from hearing about, from just my family and the people in the neighborhood, what's happened in that space, since the beginning. And so I got involved with the board a couple years ago, and one of the first things that came up was the issues with Euphoria in the neighborhood. And so I love this neighborhood. I'm invested in this neighborhood for more than one, reason. And I ultimately want the good for the neighborhood, whatever that is. So hearing about the concerns that the neighbors had with Euphoria was definitely upsetting. And I always think that there's more than one way to be able to fix the issue. So we immediately started, Brooke was the president at the time, we immediately started talking with Euphoria, and we found interacting with them very pleasant. Frong is a pleasure. He's really easy to get along with. He's easy to talk to about things, and he always makes an effort. He's made a huge effort to be able to fix the issues that the neighborhood has had. He's got security. He's increased security. He helps with the neighborhood cleanups. He does everything he can possibly think of, everything we've ever asked, he's done. We put an MOU in place, and he's tried his best to be able to keep up with that MOU. So, our relationship has been wonderful. Can't really ask for more. However, even with all the efforts, a lot of the issues have continued, and people are still very upset. And I definitely heard everything that Mr. Williams said. And I guess a little bit of my concern is that some of the statements were out of context and slightly misleading. So, and I want everyone here to really understand what's going on in this neighborhood before you make a decision. So, yes, it's an industrial area. So what that means is that they are allowed to operate by different standards. So they're allowed to operate at a higher noise level. They're allowed to do a lot of things that they wouldn't be able to do if they were in the neighborhood. But they are 500 feet away from the neighborhood. So by saying it's a very industrial area, they're 500 feet away from the neighborhood. That's right there. So, and now you can understand why there are so many complaints. Saying that they are racially motivated is upsetting to me, because what that is telling me is that Euphoria isn't actually hearing the issues that the neighborhood has. They're dismissing them by saying that they're racially motivated. But the neighbors don't realize that because they're 500 feet away from the neighborhood in an industrial area, they can operate at these levels and they can do all of these things, because these neighbors are wondering, how is this club able to do this? So when they're making their complaints, they think that they're substantiated. They really do believe that. And if there was a club operating in the neighborhood doing 500 feet over, they would be getting fines. They would be getting citations. And we also have to think of the 311 calls that are happening are patrons. So they're towards patrons as well. So when their patrons are, and we can say, okay, well, how do we know it's their patrons? Well, because they don't happen on days of the week that Euphoria is not open. Their patrons are sleeping on people's stoops. They're urinating and defecating on their stoops. They are pre-gaming in front of their houses, leaving glass bottles, just bottles everywhere, trash everywhere. They are racing. They are fighting. They are bringing a lot of chaos to the neighborhood. And so again, there's no way to say, okay, well, they're Euphoria's clientele, but these things don't happen on nights that Euphoria is not open. And the amount of violent crime that happens, the violent crime that Greektown experiences is almost only when Euphoria is operating. So we don't have stabbings and shootings in Greektown unless Euphoria is open. So, and I can't say that it is their patrons, but it's just, I mean, I could say most likely it is because that's when it happens. I know that Frawing has sheriffs, and I know that he spends a lot of money. But again, we asked him, we had a meeting, we asked, well, do they write citations? Do you have something to show us? Have they been effective? Because yeah, we're doing things, we want to know that they're effective. We don't have any record of that. So what we're seeing is that even after all the effort, the issues that are created by the club for the neighborhood are not able to be, have not been able to be fixed. They have not done much to be able to just make the neighborhood comfortable. The neighborhood feels unsafe. The people in the neighborhood feel unsafe when they see people doing these crimes in front of their houses. They feel unsafe, and you can't really blame them. And it doesn't have to do with a lot of the things that Mr. Williams brought up. So we've talked to Euphoria about the MOU. We've tried to make alterations. We've tried to put all those things in place. We've tried a lot. We worked with a lot. And so as far as we see, the club is operating at a capacity that overburdens the neighborhood. It's one that we've tried to mitigate that, and we have not been able to mitigate the burden it's placed on the neighborhood. We've asked Drawing, well, what else is there that we can do to be able to do that? And he's offered a couple more suggestions, and that's normally how it goes, but we have not been able to mitigate it. So in my opinion, decreasing, not in my opinion, but the neighborhood's opinion, because we did have meetings with the entire neighborhood. They put a petition together. They came to the community meeting overwhelmingly and gave their opinions. And they had a lot of valid things to say. Every single one of them was valid, the things that they said. And so what we're seeing is that, you know, operating at a decreased capacity might be exactly what can make having Club Euphoria next door to Greektown work. So operating at a decreased capacity, because I believe that their indoor area accommodates 300, and with that entire outdoor area, it's another about 1,000. So they're operating at 1,300. And I believe that if they decrease that capacity, it'll put them at, I'm guessing, around 700. So, but if we combine the parcels, that will ultimately be able, they will be able to increase their capacity, even if they say that they're not, and maybe they won't, but they will have that option. And if it's already overburdening the neighborhood at this capacity, the neighborhood really can't handle like anymore. It's really disappointing. It's really sad to see that people are having these feelings and then other people are telling them that they're not valid because, you know, it's racial. And that's what we've been hearing a lot. So it's very, very upsetting. And I will tell you that, yes, they've been operating at that capacity for years, and for years, the neighbors have had issues. And the reason that this was brought up, I'd like to believe that they did not realize that they were operating illegally. However, it makes you question if people, all these different authorities are coming to their establishment every time they're open and people are questioning them, you would think that they would know what was going on with their property, especially if they have attorneys, they've got all this stuff in place. I respect Frong, and I hope that he was not operating illegally consciously, but it's hard to believe that that would be the case. And so the reason why this was brought up is because we started questioning, the Greektown Neighborhood Association started questioning. We said it's hard enough to get a liquor license to accommodate a small bar. How is it that we have a club next door to a neighborhood accommodating 1,300 under a liquor license? So we talked to the liquor board. And by the way, their MOU is attached to their liquor license. So we spoke to the liquor board and we said, how is this happening? We talked to them about the concerns of the neighborhood. And the next thing you know, their outdoor area is shut down the same exact month. So that is the reason that happened, because we started questioning how this could possibly be allowed next door to a small, quiet neighborhood. So, I mean, that's what I have to say.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So when you say that Euphoria nightclub is 500 feet away from the neighborhood, I have been, the whole time you've been talking, I've been looking at Google Maps and zooming in and out. I even Googled what the bounds of Greektown are. And Euphoria nightclub is not in Greektown, right?
No, it's not. So if you
Yes.
get from the club on Google Maps to the first house in Greektown, to the corner of Greektown, 500 feet.
The corner of O'Donnell Street and 895?
Yep, right there.
There is a house there?
There's a house right next door to the Royal Farms.
Okay, but okay. Is it like a string of, but those houses are also not in Greektown then? Wait, which Royal Farms? I'm sorry.
They're Greektown. They're Greektown, yeah.
I apologize. There's two Royal Farms that are within a block of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the northern one. Okay. I understand. But that house is far away from all of the other houses in Greektown, correct?
No, there's a whole strip. There's a whole strip of houses. They're all together. They're all row homes and they're all together. As soon as you enter Greektown, it's all houses. Yep.
Okay. Euphoria itself, though, is not situated in Greektown, correct? And it's surrounded on all four sides by industrial things. That's right. This isn't like in Canton or in Federal Hill, or even,
right
in Patterson Park in some places where there's a bar next, it's like in a row house, it's like next to another house, right?
No, that's right. So it is a couple blocks away from the first house in Greektown. So technically Greektown. And that's why they are able to operate at different, with different rules.
Sure. And you also said something about like that violent crime only happens when the club is open. Is this something that you all feel, or is this something where there's like data for it that you have?
Since I've been living here, I moved away for college and I came back. And for the past few years that I've been living here, it's happened. I have made note of, I could get the data and present it to you if you'd like, but for the shootings and the stabbings that have happened were only when Euphoria was operating. And that's
which is at nighttime on the weekends, correct?
And that's the other thing, the industrial area, people are used to industrial sounds during the day, but not at nighttime, right? Till 2 o'clock in the morning too, right? So, and they come into the neighborhood. Something I didn't talk about was because they have such a high capacity, I didn't talk about the burden that it actually puts on the neighborhood, but well, a little bit. Not only do the people go into the neighborhood and do the things that I was saying, but they do park in the neighborhood, all the way down to the church, which is Eastern Avenue. People park in all of Greektown, and we understand it's the city, and you live in the city, and so you expect to not be able to find parking. But people are parking their cars there, and they are, pre-gaming and doing these things. So even though the nightclub is not in the neighborhood, the effects are in the neighborhood. The patrons are in the neighborhood. They don't just get off 95 and go to the club because there really isn't parking. And I know that Euphoria is going to say, okay, well, BJ's lets us park there. Well, that's not a formal agreement with BJ's, and it can be taken away at any time. And that's a recent development as well. So people don't just come and go to Euphoria. They go into Greektown. They park there. They drink there. They sleep there. They defecate there. And because of the laws we have, the police officers can't even give them citations or do anything about it. So we're left just crawling and not being able to do anything about it.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, back to the MOU. So the community association has not signed the MOU?
We have, and the signed MOU is attached to their liquor license.
I don't have a copy of that. Can someone tell me what's in the MOU?
Just for clarity, the MOU isn't part of it. It's an existing MOU between Greektown and Club Euphoria, right? It's not necessarily part and parcel of this.
No.
It wasn't created for this appeal, right?
That's correct. That's correct. It was signed, I believe, within the last year, but not.
So it was signed when Euphoria was still operating at the size that it wants to just operate as legally. The neighborhood organization signed this MOU with Euphoria operating in this L shape with the long outdoor place and then the building indoors. If you signed it a year ago and he's been operating like this for 7 or 8 years, the MOU was signed when it was this.
Yeah, we tried to put something in place to be able to mitigate the difficulty it was putting on the neighborhood. I mean, we didn't realize that they were operating legally and that there was a possibility of them reducing the capacity. So we were just trying to make the best of what we could. We've been trying to work with them. We really have. And we've done a lot of good things, but ultimately we definitely can't, Greektown really can't handle a higher capacity.
So I'm clear. Have these issues been brought to the liquor board? Why isn't this a liquor board issue?
I'm sorry?
The issues with the patrons and of the establishment that you've been having, have you brought them up to the liquor board?
Yes. So we had a meeting with the liquor board last summer about this.
And what was the result of that meeting?
Well, they were looking into what was going on, and immediately following our meeting with the liquor board is when they found this zoning issue. So they didn't formally tell us that that's what it was, but I would assume. I don't know.
But the liquor board hasn't revoked any of their licenses, hasn't taken away their liquor license. And
no, they have not violated anything. So again, they're in the industrial area. And I'm not saying that they break rules. They are operating within their right. They're in an industrial area and they are operating within their right. And you know what? Frawing really does his best to do the right thing. I know him and I know that that's the case. And he's a stand-up guy. But what we're talking about isn't that. We're talking about I'm just talking about what it's doing to the neighborhood.
So
I'm
if I understand correctly,
and that's all I can really do. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a city official. I am only here to tell you, hey, even when they operate in the rules, the neighborhood is having a very hard time.
So what?
Even
So
if they
then
follow all the rules.
my
So,
understanding is so then my understanding is, and let me know if I have this wrong, is that at their current use, full stop. Even though their current legal use, full stop, you believe is just too much because of the butts. The cat industrial area butts Greektown. You think that is just too much. There's
it's not that I
nothing
think it.
that you
It's
think that
that
can make it better.
the neighborhood has expressed it. It's documented. It's not I'm not here to talk about my opinion, but I'm
Yeah, I'm sorry.
really trying to talk about what the neighborhood has communicated to me for the last couple years. And I see it as well. Personally, I see it. So I know that it's valid. What they're
You
saying
guys
is,
seem to see it more
yeah,
as a capacity issue. It seems it's
I'm
more
sorry.
capacity issue that you think that as it stands, the capacity that the Euphoria has, that upper limit can be too much for Greektown. That seems to be your guys' problem.
Right.
And
So
there's
if we're
nowhere
talking
there's
about
no way
that
you
this
guys can
zoning,
work that out.
that's right. So it's too high. So if we're talking about this zoning hearing has the possibility of actually decreasing their capacity, then I think that would probably be a really good solution. They're not going to close down. We're not trying to close them down. You know, we don't want them to just disappear. But it would be, I think, a really great way to be able to make the neighborhood to alleviate some of the issues.
And
So
you probably can't answer all of these questions too, and I know that you are serving as a representative, but in the MOU, when you had a chance to cap the capacity there, why didn't you negotiate with, I see a clause in here that says the club will communicate their planned openings in excess of 600 patrons. So every time they have more than 600, they have to let the community organization know. If you were discussing the patrons here in this MOU that you signed for the club, the same size that it is now, it was a year ago, that wasn't included. Do you know why not? I don't know if you
I
do or
cannot
not.
write the MOU myself.
Fair.
But I don't think that Euphoria would have been up for us telling them, hey, you can only have this many patrons. This was us trying to figure out a way that they can operate how they're operating and try to alleviate some of the issues that were caused by it. So it wasn't limiting them, it was trying to, just fix some of the issues.
Sure. Is it working?
No. So, and like I said, we have the sheriffs, but again, the crime's still happening and all of the issues that were there before the sheriffs continue. The trash has not been better. All of the things that I've been talking about, they haven't changed. So the only thing that I can say is they have started using the BJ's parking lot, and that has alleviated some of the parking within the neighborhood. So the things still happen, but less of it.
And I just have two questions, just to piggyback off of what Madam Chair asked earlier. The community, because I'm looking at the map as well, the community that you're referring to that is immediately affected, that's right behind Rural Farms on
Yeah.
Ponca and O'Donnell Street. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
Greektown. But then the patrons park deep inside the neighborhood, not just on Ponca. So a lot of the issues that the club brings have to do with the patrons going into the neighborhood as well, because they drive in, and when you have 1,000 people driving in, they have to park somewhere. There's nowhere else to park because it's industrial. There are no other parking spots other than in Greektown. So
Understood. And then my second question is, if I hypothetically stating, if we were to grant the variance, it appears it will be less than, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, less than the total amount of space outside. If that, I know you stated there's something about if it's 1,000 extra people outside. If we were to learn that it would be only 200 people or 100 people outside for live entertainment, would that affect your opposition at all?
that's the thing. If this doesn't go through, they still have an outdoor area. The outdoor area will just be cut in half. So if their outdoor area accommodates 1,000, then I'm guessing, again, I'm not Euphoria, I don't know, guessing it'll accommodate about 500. So it's not like they're going to be losing 500 spots, right? So from that 1,300 that they're able to accommodate, 1,000 of them being outside, now they'll only be able to accommodate 500 outside, maybe around there. I don't know the exact numbers. So, and again, if you combine them, then they will be able to accommodate more outside if they actually want to in the future. So more than that 1,300 that we're talking about. So
The
by
things that are
not allowing this, then we automatically are, reducing that capacity.
the conditions that are in the MOU, you're saying that they haven't been followed, and I don't know how enforceable they are. Are the things that exist in this MOU, if you've had a chance to read it, are they still things that the community desires? Like if we could
Yes.
find a way to make these happen, these are all still things that you still want.
We do want them, but again, I mean, I'm sure that you can see just by the way that Mr. Williams was speaking, it's a lot of, there's no tracking. So while we haven't seen the result. So yes, they have their sheriffs there, but there's been no positive effect. They say that they have cleanup crews come out. Well, there's no effect. Am I supposed to go outside after Euphoria, after every time they have a party, and check to see if their cleanup crews are there? We need to police them to make sure that they're doing what they're doing in their MOU? We don't have something in place to be able to show that this is actually, they're doing it, but it's being effective as well.
You don't, but we do. You don't, but we do.
Oh, okay.
But one thing I am gonna say is that any MOU that's incorporated has to have provisions that are enforceable. So
Fair.
when you say in the MOU, they shall suggest to their patrons not to park there, like that's not, those are harder to enforce. So I want everybody to be mindful of if there are conditions or an MOU put in place that they are concrete and enforceable.
Right. Okay.
They can enforce the enforceable ones, I
Okay.
think, not necessarily the ones that seems to be suggestions. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anyone have any other questions is it Contudis? Did I say it?
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
Does anyone have any more questions for Ms. Contudis?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Oh, wait, Otis looks like he's talking, but he might not.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was saying I do not have any more questions.
Leland?
Okay.
None. Okay, so it's back to Mr.
Well,
Williams.
we have one more person that wants to speak for O'Donnell Heights, Chris Lepkowicz. So Ms. Kondudis, I'm gonna mute you and I'm gonna put you back as an attendee. Thank you. And let's see, Chris Lepkowicz, I just made you a panelist, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Testing, 1, 2,
And you're
great.
O'Donnell Heights?
We are the O'Donnell Square
Square
community, which is just about between a quarter and a half a mile from the club. And I'm just trying to see if I can go
Will
ahead.
you pronounce your last name for me also?
Oh, sure. It's Chris Lukovich.
Lukovich. Gotcha. Pretty phonetic. I can do that.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
Whenever you're ready, are you trying to turn your camera on?
Yeah, I was just going to start the video. Let's see if it works.
All right. Let's do it. There we go.
Can you see me now?
Try open. Is your camera open? There we go.
Okay, great. That's funny. I can't see myself in WebEx, but as long as you can see me and hear me, we're good.
Are you hosting a podcast? Oh, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Testify. Tell us what you need to tell us.
So yes, I am currently the president of our homeowners association, which is just a little over 300 homes. I think it's officially 315 homes, which is where the crow flies north and a little bit west of the club. It's between O'Donnell Street and Foster, I believe. So we also experience a lot of the same things Trish just brought up with patrons driving through, parking, and doing the same things she described in our community every time the club is open. But I think one of the biggest concerns our community has is just the pure safety, and just the capacity, like she said, is just so large that they do not have any way of accommodating all the vehicles that come in to that club. So where else can they go but park inside of Greektown? We're a community inside the border of Greektown, so we are technically considered Greektown, which is why I also am now on the vice president of the Greektown Neighborhood Association underneath Trish. So we've been able to come together and sort of work on some of these things. And so just to give you guys a little sense of, I know everybody's trying to figure out, well, are you 500 feet? How far away? Looking at a map, it's really hard to tell. So we can hear the club when it's operating, okay, from our community with the DJs and the music, and we can see the foam from the foam parties lands in our community. So if that gives you any idea of how close in proximity, although we are surrounded by this industrial and recently converted to a mixed use land, which is the metal plant, which is about to be developed, and then the other properties all around us. There's a lot going on, in this part of the city, and it would seem like the deals that the city's making with developers to build. This is a Ryan Townhome community. The Athena Square community is right next door to us, which is even closer to the club. We are all affected by what's happening, and it seems like the city is in favor of these types of developments and trying to make this corridor of the city more residential and less industrial, just based on the last couple of years of things going on and the changes and all the different things happening. So just to piggyback on what Trish said, I'm not going to repeat everything. I know you guys don't want us to bring up the same issues. Our biggest concern is just the safety of when you travel into and out of the community when the club is operating. There are lots of people walking and going between our community and the club. So it is a major concern because there is not a ton of lighting on the street, on Ponca Street, nor the neighboring neighborhoods that people travel to get to the club. And of course, the noise and all the other traffic concerns that we do acknowledge. There have been efforts to alleviate that with the sheriffs and trying to keep people from parking. But like everybody mentioned, that's not something that's really enforceable, but they do a little bit they put in some effort there to help appease us on those nights. But it has definitely, I've been a resident here for 5 years, and then I've been in Baltimore City for 25 of those years. So I can tell you that through the course of 5 years, things have not improved since the first year we moved in. And when everybody told us, hey, you guys are, what did you expect? You moved next to a train station, next to a metal yard, up the street from one of the city's largest clubs. Well, no, obviously we didn't expect it to be, like we moved out to the suburbs. We expected to have certain amounts of industrial noise, but the noise is just a small part of the equation of all the other things you start to consider. And one of the major things is that they don't have, the accommodations for all those vehicles. And that's what really causes most of our problems. It's the people coming in and out of the club. I don't see people taking mass transit. I don't think there's any other way to get to the club because it is on the outskirts of the city. It's not really walkable from other neighborhoods within the city. So that's why we stand mostly that's why we do stand in opposition, because of those major concerns. And that's all I'll say for now. So we've been on this call since 12:30. So I'll end with that. Thank you for
All right.
listening.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lukovich?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Just one quick one. Has the agreement for them to park at BJ's helped at all since you live there, or do you know?
We didn't even know that was an agreement. And when we met Prong at the last GNA meeting, he had mentioned that was happening. But when we questioned, it's more of an, I guess he has some kind of an oral arrangement with the manager there, and they let them, and they're starting to direct people in that direction. But like Trish mentioned, I don't believe that's a something that if management or upper management got wind of that, I don't know if they would be in approval of that, considering the condition of a lot of the club goers when they're leaving the club. And it is, I think, if you look up, there's got to be a record of, I mean, you can just Google Euphoria nightclub and see some of the incidents recently that have come up. The amount of police resources that get called in. We get a lot of the police helicopter flying overhead when the club's in operation because of all the stuff that happens outside. Again, it's outside of frying and the club's, doing, but it is their patrons coming in and leaving, most likely intoxicated, and even causing the Royal Farms that's almost directly across the street from the entrance has closed down because of all the problems they've had when the club lets out. So those are just some of the things that happen, in close proximity to what's going on there. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Um,
So I think that is it. Let me just look quickly. So Mr. Lukovich.
If it is Mr. Williams and Mr. Galan, you all have the last word together. Word meaning singular, just the one word, just
Word
that's
up.
it. That's two. Just kidding. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be brief. And I guess I'll apologize for misconstrued this, if I misconstrued or misspoke. I wasn't accusing her or the community who I didn't know what the specific complaints were about being racially motivated. I'm just saying it's a unfortunate fact and reality of life and someone who's experienced both sides of it. That's I'm saying something to be consider, and that there are other bars and obviously venues in operation on Eastern Avenue. But I understand the validity of the concerns, and I think one thing, I don't know if either participant can speak to it now. I mean, the representative can speak to it, but like a residential parking program would seem to be a solution that we would agree to, and maybe pending their respective community associations support, get behind if people cannot park in those areas on Ponca Street or what street is that? The other street, Newkirk Street, without a permit to park there, like say Federal Hill has. That would seem to be something, and one of my longer term goals, if I go back to the city, would be also to charge for parking in these sorts of areas to help pay for more security presence. But that's a longer term goal. But I think short term, that would be a condition we would be amenable to, that would solve some of it. And I mean, I guess we don't do so much if if the extra sheriff presence and law enforcement presence is ineffective at reducing crime. That's another can of worms. But I guess Euphoria has shown willingness to meet them halfway and to go further. I guess also just to address, in case it's an issue the board's considering about the operating illegally, is that, I mean, they get investigated often and there's an annual renewal process. And so if I just got involved, but if there were an issue that was available to be observed, you would think that the liquor board would catch it and the fire inspection would catch it. And so I don't think it just seems unlikely that would be the case, to be operating flagrantly like that. And I mean, if the city officials didn't catch it, despite all the scrutiny, a person who's not a code official or licensed contractor or surveyor shouldn't be expected to catch it either.
All right. Does anyone have any last questions for Mr. Williams or
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Galan?
I do. Mr. Williams, what's the nature of your, I've heard mention of an agreement with the BJ's to provide parking. What is the nature of that agreement?
I don't have information about that, Mr. Galan.
Yes, I do. So basically, to alleviate the parking issue that I do have, I obviously, as the normal person would do, I literally went around to all my neighbors that had a big lot, and I spoke to them. I was like, hey, listen, you know, maybe in your times of operation where you're not operating and you're closed, is it okay if I use your parking lot in the nighttime without all my patrons being towed out of it? And they said, as long as you clean it up and as long as you provide security and a sheriff, you're allowed to use it. And that's what I've been doing now for over a year, because when I met with GNA, they brought up the issue of, hey, the parking is definitely an issue. So when that issue became so firm, I literally reached out, and the only people that weren't using their parking lot at night for flow of traffic was BJ's.
How do you communicate to your patrons that they should park in the BJ's lot?
Well, we have like a sheriff line in the front of the club. And as patrons are coming down, we have parking available to the right in the BJ's parking lot. So they're going south of Ponca always. And when people go north, we suggest them to go south and make a right at the light. And the BJ parking lot is literally right there. We also have Norman Tool Supply, which is the lot right next door to my building. And I think that has about 35 parking spots, and that's also in an agreement with him where we're able to use that because he's closed at night, with the same agreement of just cleaning it up and making sure that the property is, secure.
So as far as BJ's is concerned, is the agreement with the local management of that particular store?
Yes, it is an agreement with like local management of that particular store.
Okay, and then back to just Mr. Williams. You gave us a number as far as how far the club is from the closest house. What number did you give us, or what distance did you give us?
I don't recall doing so. Maybe I spoke off the cuff. I don't recall doing that.
I'm asking because I wrote down 5 blocks when you were speaking, as opposed to 500 feet.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Galan did.
Maybe that was me, because that sounds like my text right there, 5-6 blocks away. That sounds like something I would say. Maybe it wasn't Mr. Justin. Maybe it was me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, then I guess it depends on measuring as a crow flies or winding up around streets about the distance. But I mean, again, I think an RPP program that would block the southern 2 or 3 blocks of the communities of O'Donnell Square and Greektown would seem to be a way to deter patrons or anybody who didn't have a visitor pass from parking in those areas, or it could be on certain nights or times of the week.
So
condition could be something like if to extent the community associations agree, Euphoria would take the lead and instituting sponsoring the RPP program and assist with the signature collection and the fees associated with that.
Yeah, but if you're looking at that as a solution, that's well into the future, if at all.
I'm trying to be proactive.
But I'm just making that statement. That's well into the future, if at all.
Let me ask, is this another hallway resolution that is this one that we need to hold on one second? I need to shut my door, y'all. Is this another one where given that in this case the parties actually do have an existing relationship that's probably functional and I don't love punting, but like I said, we lack the hallway space with the virtual meetings. And is this something that you and your client, Mr. Williams, are willing to go to the GNA and the other necessary neighborhood associations? I wrote down the 3 biggest problems as safety, parking, and noise. I think that if you all make an agreement and it's something that takes the big pieces, the pieces of the MOU that are enforceable, and then also kind of solidifies to be fair, the oral agreement between your client and the BJ's parking lot could be enforceable, but it's something that it might need to be concretized a little bit more. And so take all the pieces of the MOU that are enforceable and agree to something and then bring it back to us. That might be something that might work.
I don't think we're opposed to any solution, but it seems like I don't know. The community doesn't seem interested in that at this time.
I mean,
Okay.
we've been as proactive as we can be, both of us, and I think on both ends. Trish, I just met Chris the other day. Um, we're all people that are willing to work and talk and have meetings, but I realize what the community is saying. I hear them. You know, it's like you're doing everything in your power. It's for us, it's not enough at this time. We're not saying you're a bad person. We're not saying you're a bad operator. It's just for us, it's not enough at the time. So we've had our meetings. We've went back and forth. We've tried to agree on things. And I went to the GNA meeting we had about 2 weeks ago. I was present. I try to be present almost in every meeting. And we got a new president, which is Trish, which is, she's organized, and I was able to present my case at the meeting in front of all the neighbors, which was a little brutal, but we got through it. It was a hard thing, but it's hard things that we have to face and talk about. But I mean, at this point I think we've met and spoken as much as we can to try to mitigate this and trying to find a middle ground. And the existing MOU is something, that was put in place for this reason. We got to do our best, I think, to make a decision, not pressuring you guys or pressuring anything, but I don't think there's any much more we can meet. As you can see, it isn't like your typical where we're kind of going at it. It's more of like, we do have pluses from both sides.
Well, I mean, that's unfortunate because I agree with Sabrina. It does sound like there's some things that can still be ironed out.
Should we hear from the community if it's something that they even would consider at this point before postponing?
Yes.
Sure.
All right, so Ms. Contutis, I'm gonna put you back on.
And I Googled it, and the closest house to Euphoria is not 500 feet. It's 0.2 miles. It's 1,056 feet.
All right, so Ms. Contutis, you're here. You're back on.
So I do agree with Frawling. We've put in a huge effort, and I think that something that Miss Johnson or Miss Turner
Yeah.
might have something that we should add is it's not just overall safety, it's crime. So there is crime that they do not prosecute here in Baltimore happening on those nights that is making people generally just uncomfortable, and it's decreasing their quality of life in the neighborhood. It's making them not happy. So, like I said, defecating, urinating, sleeping, pre-gaming, all those things that are happening, and drugs too, that are happening outside of their doors while the club is operating. That is happening. And no matter what we do with Euphoria, that will not go away because the patrons are coming into the neighborhood and they're doing that. So unless we completely keep them out of the neighborhood somehow, I don't know how that would happen. I think that if they do operate at a reduced capacity, then there is a possibility that they can control that. There is a possibility that they can have their parking and that we could put an MOU in place that would actually work. But I think at this capacity, an MOU is not enough to fix the problem. So the capacity is too high to be able to control it. In my opinion, and honestly, we have spent the last 2 years that I've been on the board predominantly focusing on issues with Euphoria rather than actually focusing on other things that we could fix in the neighborhood, which is really unfortunate. So for us, we've tried everything to be able to fix it so that we could actually concentrate on other things in the neighborhood that can benefit the community. We have considered the permit parking as well. The only thing is, and again, going hand in hand with what I said about our neighborhood is just really diverse, and it's a unique neighborhood in Baltimore. And I mean, it's amazing, but we have a huge immigrant population. A lot of Hispanic people, a lot of Greek people, and a lot of these people, they you know, to be able to put permit parking in place would be nearly impossible, because we would need people to agree to it, and a lot of these people can't even read and write, and a lot of them are renters who will have a very difficult time with it. It's something that we've considered and have attempted and have not been able to implement. So we really have tried. I mean, if you guys have other ideas that would be able to fix the problem, but we've thought a lot about it. I want you guys to know that both sides, GNA, the neighborhood, and Euphoria have put in great effort, a huge amount of time, a lot of resources to being able to solve this. This isn't something that we've come into lightly and without, you know, preparation. So, and thanks, Frawling, for all your kind words. I really appreciate that.
Well, that's a no then, I'm guessing from both parties. So I have one more question for Mr. Galan and Mr. Williams, and then
I
we
think
will
that's
take
one of
it.
I think that's one of the nicest no's of not being able to talk to each other. I've heard on a zoning hearing.
No, thank you very much, please.
Like
Mr.
little,
Galan, Mr. Williams, do you all know the current capacity of Euphoria?
yes, the current capacity of the outside it's 804, and
And the inside is how many?
the inside is 387.
And can people flow freely between the two?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell us, Mr. Galan?
Nope, just thank you for everybody's time. This has been the longest zoning hearing I've ever had since 2013, I think, that I first did zoning. I appreciate everybody's time and everybody that's here, because obviously we're all here for the well-being of our community, which is, I believe, the purpose.
All
And
right.
when we have good operators, bad operators, and I believe everybody has a good point here. So I just thank you
Well,
guys for being here.
you are welcome, and we will take your matter up in deliberation. As you know, you all are all welcome to stay on the call while we talk, just as though you were in the room. But we will kick you off of the being able to participate in the discussion portion of this.
All right, no, completely fine with it.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.